1 minute. Not his phone, sure.
But it was easy to show them. Then I wanted to know that was that was very active.
Wow, that worked.
I'd like to call the order of September 13th, 2021, St. Louis County Board meeting. May I have a motion to suspend the rules of procedure to allow the attendance of legislators who want to appear here telephonically today. Mr. Hartwood makes a motion, seconded by Mr. Reagan. Any discussion on it? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Do we have a roll call?
Reagan,
Here.
Forsythe,
Here.
Lightfoot, Sheridan,
Here.
Smithers,
Here.
Denisha,
Here.
Perkins,
Here.
Akers,
Here.
Fay,
Here.
Haggard,
Here.
Fiacco,
Here.
Burke,
Here.
Arquette,
Here.
Terminelli,
Here.
Curran,
Here.
15 present.
At this time, Legislator Dankey will lead us in prayer, followed by the pledge of allegiance.
First, I would like for us to give a moment of silence in remembrance of those who are no longer with us in body, but will remain with us forever in spirit and memory. Thank you. Dear Heavenly Father, this evening we thank you yet again for the opportunity to gather in your sight. May you hear our prayers and be gracious to us and bless us individually and as a nation. We ask that you watch over those who defend our nation and keep us safe. May you grant us understanding, courage, and compassion in our actions and dealings with each other. May our faith in you and one another grow beyond our doubts, and that we will be brought together in unity of purpose. In the words of Ralph Waldo Emerson, the purpose of life is not to be happy, but to be useful, honorable, and compassionate, and to have it make some difference that you have lived and lived well. All these things we ask in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, through whom all things are possible. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You need a motion to approve the agenda for the next meeting. Perkins makes the motion, seconded by Mr. Reagan, Mr. Fay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Another motion needed to approve the minutes, the August 2nd minutes of 2021. Motion made by Mr. Perkins, seconded by Mr. Lightfoot. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. Now we have a certificate of recognition honoring Ashley McKinley. Ashley, would you please come up front to the front of the chambers here, and I'd like to present you with a resolution on behalf of the St. Lawrence County Legislature. This is a certificate of recognition. This certificate is proudly preserved to you, Ashley McKinley. And in recognition for excellence and outstanding service to St. Lawrence County Foster Children. And in appreciation of your contribution of 50 handcrafted bears to be given to foster children in St. Lawrence County. There is no better gift than the selflessness, act, and kindness that may make the difference in the life of a child. And your kind gesture will currently go a long way in making a child feel special and cared for. You have earned the respect and appreciation of the Board of Legislators, Department of Social Services, and the gratitude of our county administrator, who's watching from by way of Syracuse on Zoom right now, and the citizens, all the citizens of St. Lawrence County, who are all probably watching on YouTube, so you're famous. And so thank you very much, Ashley, for caring. And this.
Actually, I'm sure that your own legislator, Suzanne Fiacco, if she were here tonight, would have loved to have given you this, but, she's here by Zoom. So I was asked to present these to you and thank you on behalf of everybody in the room for all of your hard work. I know a lot of times young people wonder how they can make a difference in the world. Well, you've done that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks.
The next thing on our agenda is the COVID update. And I believe Dr. Williams will be making a presentation tonight. And go ahead, Dr. Williams, unless you prefer Jolene to go before you.
I think Jolene is going to go first, if that's okay with you.
That's fine. Okay, Jolene, are you there?
I am. Can you see my screen?
Yes, you're on. I can see it right now, Jolene. Go ahead.
Perfect. So for today, we have 9,541 cases to date. We have 26 current hospitalizations. 591 are active cases, while 8,841 have completed isolation, and there have been 109 cumulative deaths. For the daily hospitalizations, you can see that we have crept back up into the higher range. So right now we're averaging in the high 20s or low 30s for the number of people that are hospitalized on a daily basis. For our weekly cases, we still have one day in our reporting week. We do Wednesdays to Tuesdays. We have so far this week 492 cases. Last week, we had 482 cases total compared to the week before that, where we had 353. So as you can see, we have been steadily and very fast, steeply increasing our cases. So our average new daily cases that we are bringing in right now is we're at 82, and that does not include for our cases that we'll add to the average tomorrow. Last week, we were at 68.86. The week before that, we were at 50. The week before that, 33. So as you can see here too, the number of cases that we get every day is going up. And the big one with our weekly school cases, so this is our K-12 school cases. So far this month, since September 1st, we have had 113 school cases. That includes students and faculty or staff teachers. So this week alone, not counting tomorrow, we've had 85 school cases. Last week we had 28. our average is 56 cases if you average both of those out right now. We haven't been that high for school cases since January. We averaged about 52 cases a week in January. So with the colleges, you can see that the colleges are back and they have increased our numbers a little bit. They did do the screening testing, and Dr. Mons will talk a little bit more about that. But you can see they are starting to go down. So we did have a spike. So this week we had 94, which is down from 145 last week. So for our isolation and quarantine, we have 591 that are on isolation, and we have 954 people that are in quarantine. So far, we've put 41,320 individuals through the isolation and quarantine process. So for monthly cases by age group, this is a new statistic I'm going to start providing every month for you. I do have September in here just because this is a later meeting, and I want to show the impact of the school age kids. So for August, 22% of our cases were in the 0 to 19 range. For September to date, that has increased up to 31%. So most of the cases are not in the 65 plus anymore, that what we had originally been seeing. They are in the under 64 and under, with that higher percentage being that 0 to 19. And hospitalizations by age group. So for the month of August, we had 58 people total hospitalized, and basically 7% were 19 between the ages of 0 birth to 19. 3% were 20 to 44, but that highest percentage is the I'm missing a age in there. Just realized that they're in that 45 to 64 range, though. That should be different to have the total count. And then just some a few additional statistics for our county. We are in high transmission still. We do have a higher positivity rate. According to the CDC, we're at 5.5% for positivity. For our eligible population that's fully vaccinated, that's 59.7, and I have that twice just because 12 and older is 59.7, 18 plus is 61.1, and then for 65 plus, we're at 81.5%. So that's fully vaccinated, broken down by the different age ranges. And we are working to increase all of them, but we are specifically targeting schools right now. One question that we are getting for testing is, I tested positive on a home test. Now what do? You have to call public health to report the test. Any home test that is FDA approved is accepted by public health. If you do not report it to us, we do not know because you're taking it at home. And if you're telling friends, family, close contacts that you tested positive and they're staying home and work requires a quarantine order, we're not going to be able to provide that unless you self-report to us. And just as a side note for these, the antigen tests are not approved to use for symptomatic students and staff to return to schools. So for our vaccine distribution, we have administered as a health department 6,307 doses so far. The first doses and second doses, we have done 5,360. So during September, every Monday and Wednesday, excluding holidays, from 8:30 to 2:30, we are giving Pfizer here at the public health department. We've also done a second round of school clinics, and we worked with the SUNY colleges to help them meet the new mandate that all students have to be vaccinated by the 27th of September. So for this week, we are doing second doses at Ogdensburg Free Academy, Potsdam Central School, Parrishville Hopkinton, and Clifton Fine. And then we are still working on homebound. So as people change their mind, we are still going out. We are actively working with schools and businesses for on-site clinics. And then we're planning for the 5 to 11-year-olds. We're not sure yet when it will become available for them, but when it does become available, we want to be ready to just roll out of clinics. And then we're also planning for third doses. If you need transportation to get a vaccine, you can call the volunteer transportation center, and they will arrange a ride for you to any vaccine site in the county. So one of the new mandates that came out is a screening testing program for pre-K-12 schools. And I know there's a lot of words here, but this is going to go out in a slide to the municipal call tomorrow. And I believe everybody gets that. So the premise of the screening testing program is you are either, if you're not vaccinated, you get tested weekly. So we are actively working with all of the public school districts and the private schools to get a testing plan in place to do that weekly testing. And it also has to be offered for students. So all of the school districts are sending out information on it. It is completely voluntary for students. It is mandatory for unvaccinated staff to be tested weekly, as long as we are in a moderate, substantial, or high. It's offered for students. And then we still get questions on who has to quarantine. So this is just if you're not fully vaccinated or you haven't recovered from COVID in the previous 3 months, anyone with symptoms, regardless of vaccination status. If you are fully vaccinated with no symptoms, we do recommend that you get tested after 3 to 5 days after your exposure. And just as a reminder, there are no longer any exemptions for essential workers. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Williams.
Okay, so good evening. I did want to start off, as I usually do, just talking a little bit about some national trends that we're seeing in cases. The good news, and I have a question mark there, but it seems on a national level as though there may be some decrease in the number of cases that's been sustained now for several weeks. If you look at the trend, the cases, again, are going down by a small amount, and hopefully this is a trend that's going to continue. If you look at some of the other measures, they're either slightly positive or flat. It's very common for deaths and hospitalizations to be delayed after the original diagnosis. So I'm hoping this is a favorable trend that we're going to sustain across the country. Unfortunately, it's not a trend that we're seeing in our county, but again, we tend to follow the national trends at some point. If you look at what's driving all the data that Jolene presented in terms of the county, again, it's all about the Delta variant. So we know that it's more contagious. And this is a graphic illustration looking at the original COVID strain. If you start with one person who's infected, they're likely to infect somewhere between 2 and 3 people. Those people in turn infect 2 or 3 people. If you look at the Delta variant, there's some debate about the R value, the reproductive rate, how many people the individual who's infected can then subsequently infect, but it's quite a bit more. And what you can see is in just one sequence, you can get up to 30, 31 people infected from one individual. The other thing we're seeing is an impact on the younger population. So if everyone remembers back to last year, where this really seemed to be impacting the more senior people in our community, that's really not the case anymore. In terms of pediatric cases, there seems to be like a 2.5 times increased rate of infection. And as Jolene mentioned, about 1 out of 3 cases in St. Lawrence County is now in people under the age of 18. A physician in Baltimore kind of coined the phrase younger, sicker, and quicker. So it seems like that's what we're seeing. As far as severe illness and hospitalization, there's data, again, this is from the UK, suggesting there's about 2 times risk for hospitalization for adults. Again, a concerning trend with kids is this increased risk of hospitalization. Now, the CDC published something that said for age 0 to 4, there was a 10 times increase in hospitalizations. I think it's important to keep these things in perspective, though. So when you talk about 10 times, you're still talking about low rates of hospitalization for children. So it's important to be aware of this. It's important to keep it in perspective. I do also though want to put out there that if you look at the data now, even though the risk is low, there's been nearly 500 deaths of children from COVID. I know this is something that's been talked about a little bit. If you look at the average number of deaths from seasonal influenza for pediatric patients, it's around 160. Curious thing, when you look at the data from the 2020 to 21 influenza year, there's actually only one pediatric death. So while we're talking about influenza, because the influenza season will be coming up, and I think people sometimes will make a comparison between COVID and influenza. Seasonal influenza, if you average the past, I think they averaged the past 5 years, excluding last year, kills about 36,000 Americans. A graphic way of looking at this, and this was put out by the Joint Commission, which is a very reliable organization that actually audits hospitals. If you look at Soldier Field as an example, and if you look at the number of seats that those people who died from seasonal influenza would fill, it fills up about 60% of Soldier Field. And again, this is just a graphic visualization, but if you look at COVID-19, killed more than 100,000 Americans, and that would fill up all of these stadiums of Soldier Field. And if you look at this little section here in red, so this darker blue line reflects when vaccination was available. This little red area is where people who are vaccinated would be represented in terms of deaths from COVID. Looking again at the trends for what's happening with Delta, if you look at this graphic, so this is share of hospital admissions for COVID-19 by age. And it's comparing January 10th, which is when the Alpha strain was there. That was, again, these are older people. And there was a real trend toward people in their 60s, 70s, and 80s being hospitalized. If you look at August 27th, if you look at that week, and that was when Delta was clearly the predominant strain, again, you see a trend toward younger people being hospitalized. Jolene went over this on a county level. This is data I have from St. Lawrence Health. If you look at this age group between 55 and 74, they now are almost half of the people who are being hospitalized. You do also see that the 20 to 44-year-old age group, which had previously been pretty much unaffected, is at like 12%. So that was for the month of August. That was St. Lawrence Health System, but just to give you a sense of what's happening both nationally, but locally as well. This begs the question of, so Delta's bad, is Delta in St. Lawrence County? Curiously, New York State Department of Health, when we've requested, doesn't necessarily test for the variants. They go by the idea that the variant is, that Delta is so common throughout the state that we should just assume it's here in St. Lawrence County. Fortunately, our colleagues at SUNY Upstate, particularly Dr. Frank Middleton, who works for SUNY Upstate and also Quadrant Biosciences, they do sequence the positive COVID cases that we get from the county. They looked recently at 56 samples, and they found that 96% of them were Delta. That is actually pretty consistent with what New York State is telling us on a state level, but it's nice to know that it is in fact the case in St. Lawrence County. As far as efficacy, so effectiveness of vaccination against Delta, there was something published just on September 10th looking at hospitalizations. And what they found is that for people who are fully vaccinated, they had a reduced rate of infection. So they were 5 times less likely to be infected. They were 10 times less likely to be hospitalized, and they were 10 times less likely to die. So that's just recent data looking at vaccine efficacy. Another way to look at this on a national level anyway is to look at where vaccination is occurring and look at how that impacts death rates. And what you see, so the darker area, mostly in the Northeast and a little bit in the Northwest, are higher vaccination areas. The lighter blue-green areas are lower vaccination areas. So then if you look at deaths from COVID, what you see is in the light blue green area, there's a substantially lower rate of death, where if you compare the dark blue area, sort of increased death rates. So just another graphic illustration of what we think is happening in terms of the impact of vaccination at being able to reduce severe illness or death. If you look at, again, preventing death, if you look at just 1 week in the US, so this was a week in mid-August, there are more than 5,000 deaths. And if you represent those deaths as blue dots, it looks like this. And these are unvaccinated people. So about, more than 5,200 of them were unvaccinated. If you look at the proportion that was vaccinated, it's just this very small portion. And so again, a graphic illustration of vaccination preventing death, even in the context of Delta. As far as preventing severe illness, what we saw in a publication, again, from the CDC, was that with Pfizer, and I think this was specifically with Pfizer, against Alpha, it was about 95% effective at preventing hospitalization. And with Delta, it was similarly slightly less effective, but 92%. Now in St. Lawrence County, so this is data from, I looked at the hospital census on the day that I was making the slides the other day, and you see a pretty consistent trend where similar to what you see on a national level, the vast majority of people who are hospitalized are unvaccinated. The number does fluctuate on a daily basis. We're a small county, so we have a small number, and the information is not always statistically significant. But again, the vast majority of people who are hospitalized are unvaccinated. If you look at the hospital census, and Jolene displayed this, I think, looking at from the beginning of the pandemic, but if you look more recently, sort of July, August, and September, and this is St. Lawrence County, so it's St. Lawrence Health System and Claxton. What you see is a pretty concerning upward trend. The other day, we're up to 34 between both hospitals. So, this is certainly a stress on the local hospital systems. The hospitals, both Claxton Hepburn and the 3 hospitals with St. Lawrence Health System, are frankly just busier in general. There seem to be more patients admitted for other illnesses. So when you add patients with COVID, it's certainly putting a stress on the hospital systems. Just to shift gear a little bit to talk about schools reopening, so the pre-K through 12 schools, I think everyone's sort of figured out that it's a balance, and that clearly the value of in-person education, I think, outweighs the risks of COVID. I feel like as a nationally and locally and as individuals, I think we've all kind of figured that in-person education is so critical that no matter what's happened with COVID, we really have to try and make that work. However, St. Lawrence County has some significant challenges. So just as we're getting the kids back to school, we have Delta kind of peaking in our community, and it's highly contagious. It seems to infect kids at a higher rate than the previous strains. And we have this high community prevalence, so it's just bad timing. The other challenge is that younger students aren't eligible for vaccination. So if you're less than 12 years old, you can't get vaccinated. The other thing is, as a community compared to our region and compared to the rest of New York State, we have a relatively low vaccination rate. And I would say that our adherence to mitigation efforts throughout the community is variable. The number 4 and number 5 are in red because those are things that are in our control. 1, 2, and 3 are really not in our control. I did want to point out that, last year, and this was before Delta, it was very good evidence that done properly, pre-K through 12 schools can operate quite safely with very low rates of intrascholastic infection. So that was demonstrated last year, and I think our school districts did an excellent job. There's definitely examples, and again, this is not a local example, but with Delta, where if you don't do those interventions, you can just have simply one teacher who can infect like half the class. So that's what we want to avoid. And really using the 5 pillars applied to school seems to be the best recipe for that. So Jolene mentioned this, but we have our 4 colleges are back on campus. Each of the colleges now have vaccine mandates. They're all implementing universal masking. They all have a testing and screening program, and they're all participating in tracing and isolation. So Clarkson right now has 6 active cases. They've done more than 300 tests, and they're 99% vaccinated, and they have a very high rate of vaccination for their faculty and staff. SUNY Potsdam currently has 38 active cases. They've done more than 7,000 tests, and they're about 86% vaccinated. SUNY Canton has 12 active cases, 4,200 tests, and 71% vaccinated. And St. Lawrence currently has 84 active cases, more than 8,000 tests, and about 97% vaccination rate. So all 4 colleges are doing what they can to mitigate the virus. We had some concerns with St. Lawrence initially with their cases, but they've been very aggressive and really worked on it, and their cases are trending down, which is excellent news. Finally, I just want to talk about booster shots. So a lot of questions about this. So what is a booster shot? So a booster shot is basically just an additional dose of a vaccine that's given to increase the level of protection. It's a fairly common practice within immunization. And another example of this that people are familiar with is tetanus, right? You get a booster shot after 10 years. People are asking, when can I get a booster shot? So right now, individuals who fit into the 6 different categories of immunosuppression are already eligible for, people use the term third shot, or essentially an additional dose of the vaccine. So if somebody's immunosuppressed, they're almost always going to be under the care of a provider, of a physician. They should ask their physician, do they qualify? If they do, they could get their third shot like today or tomorrow. The CDC and the ACIP are going to announce a plan for boosters shortly. It's a little bit unclear what their guidance is going to be. I suspect that they're going to initiate a plan focusing on higher risk groups first before they do the population in general. However, there's just lots of conversation about which direction they're going to go. So what's the reason for a booster shot? So we know, and I've shown you, that the current vaccines are still highly effective against severe disease, hospitalization, and death, including against the Delta variant. But we also know that immunity from vaccination and from infection wanes over time. And the idea is that booster shots increase the durability, or how long the vaccines last, and they may also decrease the number of breakthrough cases. People want to know, well, which vaccine is used if you're going to get a booster? And that's pretty clear. So you're supposed to receive the same shot as you receive for your primary series. So if you started out with Pfizer, you should get a booster of Pfizer. If you started out with Moderna, you're going to get a booster of Moderna. Johnson & Johnson, they're working out some details about the recommendations for that, and that'll be included in the guidance that is announced probably as early as next week. And then I guess an important question is, does this mean the vaccines are not working? And the answer to that is no, the vaccines are working. And in fact, they're working so well that if you're following this, there's actually some discussion within the FDA about whether boosters should be utilized or not. And that's really a reflection of the fact that many people in the medical community feel like the vaccines are working so well. So it doesn't mean that the primary vaccine isn't working. It actually is not the case. I just wanted to review this because I think a lot of people appropriately have a question of, is there treatment? So if I get COVID and I'm not in the hospital, is there treatment in the pre-hospital setting? And so again, this is from the NIH and from the Infectious Disease Society of America. So this is what we as physicians tend to rely on for information. And the one current option, again, is this IV monoclonal antibody therapy. People call it the antibody cocktail. It's given for patients over the age of 65 or younger patients who have risk factors for severe disease. It is an intravenous injection. You have to use it kind of earlier in the course of illness, and you can't use it in somebody who requires oxygen. It is something that is available in the community. So if somebody is in this category, they should contact their provider, and St. Lawrence Health System, and I believe Claxton Hepburn, is able to administer this. So this is a therapy that's out there. I should mention that one of these monoclonal antibody therapies had to be taken off the market because of resistance that was found because of variants. So then the other question is, there's all these other treatments that are talked about, and they're in this category of not recommended at this time, either because they don't work and we know they don't work, or they're unsafe, or in some cases, there's just insufficient data to make a recommendation. And so those are like hydroxychloroquine. And that was one where if you remember, there was a lot of excitement, including on the part of the medical community. However, once proper randomized controlled trials came out, it was pretty clear that it's not effective. Dexamethasone, something that's used in the inpatient setting, is not helpful in the outpatient setting. Things like azithromycin, an antibiotic we thought might help, doesn't. Now, ivermectin is something that's in the news quite a bit. It is a medication that's used in veterinary medicine. It's also a medication that we do use in humans for certain indications. What I would say is, as a physician, if I'm thinking about prescribing something, I read the literature, and then I also read things like there's something called the Cochrane Library or the Cochrane Review. And it's a group of unbiased medical scientists who get together and they look at all the data. They determine whether the research supports what people are asserting. And their review of the literature about ivermectin basically says they feel that the evidence is not there to recommend it, and outside of a well-designed randomized clinical trial. And so what's happening is both in the US, the federal government is sponsoring something called Act 6, which is where they're looking at repurposed medications, so medications which were primarily used for something else, and seeing if they might work for COVID. And then at Oxford University in the United Kingdom, they're also doing a very well-designed randomized controlled trial on ivermectin called the Principal trial. Those studies are already underway, and hopefully they'll release some preliminary data. But in the meantime, the recommendation is not to use something like ivermectin because of what's considered insufficient data. So again, the bottom line is really there's either limited or no treatment for the majority of people who come down with COVID. There is this option for IV therapy, but the infection is preventable, or at least severe infection is preventable by vaccination. So the emphasis is really on prevention. So to summarize, St. Lawrence County, we have this significant increase in COVID-19 cases. It's clearly due to the Delta variant. Delta seems to, affect younger, sicker, and is quicker. Hospitalizations are increasing at a pretty alarming rate. Our hospitals right now are able to handle the cases, but I would say that we're strained. And if the rate of hospitalization were to continue, we could become overwhelmed. The schools and colleges are in person. All 4 colleges and all the school districts are really making their best effort to reduce transmission and to identify cases so that isolation and quarantine protocols can be implemented. COVID infections and hospitalizations are trending toward younger groups. Again, I think it's important for people to realize that while children can be infected, most children who get this have a mild illness, even an asymptomatic illness. So people should be cautious, but again, most children do quite well if they get this illness. And then finally, vaccination is our best protection against severe illness and death. And so people should get vaccinated. That's my presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. Any questions from the board? Joe, please.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Lightfoot.
Dr. Williams, Joe Lightfoot. Of the people that are presenting in the hospitals with symptoms that one would expect with a COVID infection, what are the majority of these people presenting with? In other words, sore throat, headache, fever, whatever. And as a second part to that question, do these symptoms that they present with differ with the age groups?
Good question. So, and actually you partially answered the first part of the question. So yes, people, when they're presenting, especially if they're coming to the hospital. They're coming to the hospital because they have a fever that's not breaking with Tylenol or ibuprofen. Often they have a cough or shortness of breath or chest pain. I mean, those are the things that tend to compel people to come to the hospital to be evaluated. The symptoms are fairly similar across the age groups, at least for the people who present to the hospital. That being said, many children have like a runny nose or a sore throat, and that's it. Some adults have a runny nose and a sore throat, and that's it. One of the challenging things about this disease, honestly, is you could take two 50-year-olds who otherwise seem the same. One of them gets infected and ends up in the hospital on a ventilator, and the other 50-year-old says, gee, I'm not even really sure I had COVID. So it's very confusing in that way. It can affect what would otherwise seem to be similar people very differently. But cough, fever, sore throat, shortness of breath, headaches, muscle pain, those are the common things. A little bit less common are some gastrointestinal symptoms, so like abdominal pain or diarrhea. The reason I mention that is some people only have that and they don't think that they might have COVID, and that can be a manifestation, a symptom of COVID that people should be aware of.
Follow up.
Yes, follow up, Mr.
As a percentage of the people that are admitted to the hospital, what percentage of those people are put on ventilators?
So I would say about 10%, between 5 and 10%, and it varies. And that is something that does vary a little bit with age. So people who have multiple chronic illnesses who tend to be older, people who have underlying lung disease, people with underlying heart disease, they're the ones who in general are at greater risk of being put on a ventilator. The number varies from day to day. And one of the challenging things about St. Lawrence County, again, is fortunately our numbers of everything are lower. And so we might have one day where we have a surprising number of people on ventilators and another day where we don't. It's not statistically significant. The vast majority of people who come in the hospital, receive the treatment that we give for people who are in the hospital, and they go home. It does tend to, the hospital stay is much longer than many other illnesses. So it's not uncommon for somebody with COVID to be in the hospital for 3 or 4 weeks, which is pretty uncommon for most respiratory infections.
Thank you, Doctor.
Ms. Haggard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Two things, either Dr. Williams or Ms. Munger. It looks like our vaccination rate in the county is kind of creeping up. Could you address some of the misinformation that's out there about the vaccines being deadly or very dangerous? Because it seems like, well, I am still hearing people very afraid to take the vaccine because of information that might not be accurate. And then secondly, the second part of my question is about long haulers and what you're seeing there.
So I'll maybe take at least the first part of the question. So I guess what I would emphasize to people is that, every day when I come into the hospital is full of people with a COVID infection. The ERs are full of people with complications from the COVID infection. The ERs, the hospitals are not full of people who got a side effect from the vaccine. When I'm in my office and I talk to people who had the vaccine, many people have a predictable mild reaction for a day or two. And then a week later, 2 weeks later, they're absolutely back to normal. So the virus itself is a very dangerous, unpredictable virus. The vaccine, again, now we have millions and millions of people who've received it, continues to prove to be safe and effective. So if people are afraid of something, they should be very afraid of COVID, the virus. They should not be afraid of the vaccine. And I'll just add that I think before Delta came, maybe if you really did, if you were very careful, there was a decent chance if you sort of followed the 5 pillars that you might dodge this. I think now with Delta, the degree to which it's contagious, I think your ability to not get the infection if you're unvaccinated has really changed. I think the risk of Delta is considerably higher. And so the need for vaccination is greater.
Any more questions, Doctor? Thank you very much, Dr. Williams.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda are communications, but it's my understanding we don't have any communications.
No communications.
The next will be citizen participation. We have some people here to be heard, and I ask you to walk to the podium and stand at the podium while you speak and keep it to 5 minutes. And when you show up at the podium, just let us know what your name is. And so we'll start out with, sometimes I don't pronounce the names right, but William Rumi or Romy?
You're getting it.
How is it, Rumi or Romy?
Room, just room.
Rome, oh, the E and the N silent, okay, that's it. Thank you, sir. Okay, we'll have square.
I am William Room. Pricks. What exactly is a prick on the end of a goad? The goad was a long point metal prick by Okay, so I was trying to give you guys a lesson on what a goad is. A goad was a long pointed staff with a metal prick on the end that was used by an oxen handler to control the oxen. The prick from the goad forced the animal to do the will of the handler. I guess some would say my struggles with the DA, law enforcement, school board are because I kicked the goats. Truth be known, DA, sheriff, and school board are not pricks. In fact, I'm here to tell you I'm the prick. The people here tonight are the goats. Kicking us, sex victims, and for children's rights is fruitless, futile, and a ruinous resistance. We're not going away until our children are safe and the county can demonstrate responsible hands. I recently was told an Ogdensburg correction officer who on a return trip from Canada had his phone confiscated at the border. 2 weeks later, he was arrested by U.S. Marshals for sex trafficking. You all know the story of Prince Andrew. He was influenced by Epstein to have sexual intercourse with a minor. Any of you have royal blood? New Epstein statute, by the way, sex victims up to 55 can sue pedophiles. All of us here have experienced some form of visit by law enforcement, CPS, public officials to silence our voices. For me, it was several harassing home visits by Sheriff Deputy Colin Nichol, where he stated he was related to Legislator John Burke. He told me free speech comes with consequences, and he threatened and ultimately took my license. Fortunately for us, U.S. Nichol resigned one day last September. FOIL requests for reasons why have been denied. Over 2 years waiting, now a judge in the case has recused himself. For this type of rampant police corruption and my constant harassment, I was pleased to see the robust reform plan adopted by the county sheriff. I applaud the idea of accountability, but as with everything in this county, it comes with resistance. In the plan, the sheriff submits a yearly comprehensive review of deployment strategies, policies, procedures, and practices. This yearly review includes gun discharge records, officers referred for misconduct, review of force policy, and use of force reports. I foiled this material, although I didn't know why I had to, but Mr. Button now wants to charge me for 5 hours of labor at $29 an hour. Why am I paying for something that the county's obligated itself to produce? Maybe it's because Mr. Button is getting a raise for $158,000 and we should all be there on October 4th at 5:50 p.m. to say no. I am a whistleblower. Mr. Lemire is one of the teachers I saw touch, grope, restrain, and kiss student victims at Mattawampton Central School. He assaulted my wife when she was 13. Superintendent Eric Burke in the paper and the news has created the narrative that I'm a disgruntled employee and there's no credible evidence to warrant an investigation. He has used the police to quiet my voice. This past Friday, Mr. Lemire is still working at the school. Outside of what I witnessed and my wife experienced for 5 years, he was with others, multiple victims each year, from groping to intercourse. One person recently told us she was sexually abused at home and failed by CPS. He was her teacher and coach, and when she was 16, he penetrated her. That's called rape. As a former NW employee, Margaret Haggard should know that I think she filed a report against a protection against Principal Joe Ruddy, a protection order. Kevin Akers might know, he was on the school board when all this stuff was happening. Mr. Reagan, you surely know, I mean, you wrote about Gerald Molnar and his misconduct as a judge. Molnar was on the school board for 20 years. I have seen 7 arrests on my records. Harassment 2 of Eric Burke has been dismissed. Stalking of Eric Burke has been dismissed. Harassment of school board president has been dismissed. Disorderly conduct school board president has been dismissed. Pending dismissal, DUAI, stalking school board president. All of these are dismissed because of false arrest, malicious prosecution, perjury, and fabricated evidence. God said to Paul, it's hard to kick against the pricks. Maybe you should all start listening to God. It is He who uses us to goad you. It's time to listen to us and punish those who subvert justice and exploit children. Mr. Sheridan, this is not a commotion. You are elected and accountable. Stop catering to princes and princesses. Cleopatra had her face stamped on an Egyptian penny because she was the queen of the common people. Use her as an example and become a champion of our children and families. You are lawmakers. Make laws.
Francine Griffin.
Francine Griffin from Maverick. Here we are again, another month gone by, and still no answers for the 150 complainants or victims of CPS. I'll call them victims because that's what they are. We've heard nothing except what has been stated by some in the media. Ms. Doyle stated the Office of Children and Family Services did some oversight reviews, but she believed they found nothing in regards to complaints received about DSS employees. Office of Children and Family Services completed a review that required action and stated they will continue to monitor and implement the required action to make sure they do it. Clearly, they did find wrongdoing. Ms. Doyle stated they never got that report from Office of Children and Family Services. So why would Ms. Doyle make a statement to the media that she received or believed that OCFS found no wrongdoing? Ms. Doyle sat down with CPS caseworkers and she stated that they were tired and stressed. It should be explained in the media about what their job involves. Ms. Doyle, their victims are tired and stressed. It does not give CPS caseworkers a license to harass, retaliate against, perjure any of the wrongdoings and crimes they have committed. I can only guess that when you sat down with them, they didn't tell you about one of their catchphrases they refer to as one and done. This involves responding to a call they have no intention of legitimately investigating. In and out in a minute, case closed. Did they tell you the hotline calls and the calls from mandated reporters that were totally ignored or missing or omitted documentation? This comes from ex-caseworkers, along with other wrongdoing committed by some caseworkers. It's been stated that the data presented, I believe Ms. Doyle said this, lacked content in some cases, but provided some insight into the department's situation. What does that even mean? If you are lacking data, maybe you should have asked the victim to supply the data so that you would not be lacking content. That would have been a solution. John Burke made a statement to the media in which he said the board conducted an investigation and no credible evidence was found in regards to the claims. What Mr. Burke failed to state was that the board's investigation didn't include any of the 150 victims or their evidence. Many on the board are well aware that many of the victims can prove wrongdoing. An investigation was probably done under administrative or business. Therefore, you weren't obligated to ask the victims for their evidence. You probably could have, but because of legal issues, you didn't. Legislators are responsible for oversight of county departments. You are not supposed to be working, or you're supposed to be working for the citizens of this county, not defending DSS. That's Mr. Button's job, which brings the question of conflict of interest, because Mr. Button is also the attorney for this board. When you put half-truths in the media, Mr. Burke, when you know that we can't be silenced, what are you doing? You are discrediting 150 victims. You have in turn victimized them all over again. What's worse is you're attempting to silence them, and most disturbingly, the voices of children. Mr. Lightfoot stated in the media that you've been taken to task by some of the individuals. Why wouldn't you be? This board contributed to some of the problems within DSS. Mr. Lightfoot stated that one investigation is closed and another is going on. Yet we are not told who is investigating, and as of yet, none of the 150 victims have been contacted. Why? I believe you don't want the evidence to back up the claims. It's not just a matter of a few wrongdoings, is it? Some of the wrongdoing is criminal. When perjury is carried into family court with some of these caseworkers, how many caseworkers have been derailed, made to go in a different direction they never should have been? Lawyers, judges, and more are included. Mr. Sheridan stated that Ms. Ackerman did a good job considering the commotion within CPS. Ms. Ackerman resigned, leaving families and children in the lurch, so to speak. She was aware of some of the wrongdoing within, and she chose to turn tail and run. There must have been some knowledge of her inadequate job performance when Ms. Haggard was willing to vote for the shared tax proposal of Ogdensburg by the county if Cynthia Ackerman was fired. Ms. Haggard also stated that the claimants had no right to question Mr. Burke. I believe you all put your pants and your dresses on the same way we do. But as our legislators, you are held to a higher standard. To state that some should not be questioned shows the mindset of this board.
Mayor Skelly? Augsburg.
Hi, good evening, St. Lawrence County Legislature. So, I come here for mandatory online safety in schools. I think it's very important. Our children are lured out of their homes by phones that we put in their hands. This is just a short list, 21 apps parents and communities should know about. Some of them, the first most dangerous one we would think would be Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. It's not. It's called After School. Calculators another very dangerous act that lures children out of homes. So this is a very short list. But this evening, I'd like to add something, maybe another app or email that the county should be aware of is the Lessick campaign hacked my email. On July 18th, I requested some letters of support to get my daughter out of an abusive situation she's in. We have 8 open investigations of abuse and neglect on my daughter in the Office of Children and Family Services. I just got one this past week. 4 allegations were sustained. I'll read number 1 to you. The investigation revealed the subject grabbed and threw my child to the ground. 2, 3, 4 substantiated. There's 8 of them open. She called her attorney, Ms. Jane Garland. Ms. Jane Garland says, I have 2 neglect cases in front of you, Lucia. You're gonna have to wait. This is the beautiful picture I showed of my daughter at 13. This was our life. She was a 4th place equestrian rider and jumper. In Broward County, she went to school one day and they didn't check the bus. They didn't do the count check and she was kidnapped and spent 10 days trafficked. I learned that they sell and buy our children on cell phones. I want this mandatory in schools. I keep coming back. This is the Lessick campaign evidence that my account was hacked. They used the police department of Augsburg as my phone number. The federal building of Social Security is my address. Right here. This is a family court candidate. He has retaliated against me since I put an opinion piece in the North Country Now. I never said who I was voting for. Transparency would be that it's a Lessick Duvet campaign. He didn't like that. So I've been attacked. He sent out a list of sex offenders saying that Mr. Moses defends sex offenders. No, the Constitution tells us that they have the right to due process. So I looked at those lists. The sentences that were handed down by the judge were so light. They were light. That is what I'll talk to Mr. Lessick about. I am sick of being retaliated by Mr. Lessick, and he wants to represent children. He wants to make decisions for children at the time when families have such difficult transgressions. It's unbelievable. I am going to keep coming here, and hopefully next month I get to do some more of this. So I'm going to read a letter. I have permission. Secretly afraid. Family court took only one option for a child trafficking victim, and that was detention. And that was my daughter. At 13, this would be my first time going to detention. I was quiet, secretly afraid, but I put forth my best effort to seem strong and unfazed. Even though I felt so afraid I couldn't sleep, and I cried at night in my room under my blanket. There she is. Eventually, I would be moved to a detention center with older kids who are locked up for very violent crimes. Staff members and other youth attacked me. Staff members punched me and pushed me to the ground. I've been raped in detention in Florida. I just took it. I didn't cry. Just tensed my body up and shut my eyes tight. Tears almost often get away from me, but I squeeze my body and hold them in, but all the inner pain quietly turns outwards. I'm not the same girl anymore. She's not. She's handcuffed. She's silenced. The judge doesn't care. Jane Garland does not care. This is the picture. 13, we've been separated. Look at her tiny little hands. I wish I could touch them. Eating popcorn. Popcorn is a privilege for my daughter. A privilege. It's a luxury. I'm asking the Board of Elections to disqualify Alexander Lessick from running from family court judge to make any decisions for precious children in this county.
Barb, if Bernie,
Good evening. I'm Barb McBurney, and this is Madeline Pennington. We're the co-chairs of the Constitution Week for the Nahanawadi chapter of the National Society of the Daughters of the American Revolution. We're requesting that the St. Lawrence County Board of Legislators pass the resolution proclaiming the week of September 17th through September 23rd, 2021 as Constitution Week. We urge Americans to reflect on the United States Constitution during this month's annual observance to honor this foundational document of national governance. There are two documents of paramount importance to American history: the Declaration of Independence, which forged our national identity, and the United States Constitution, which set forth the framework for the federal government that functions to this day. While Independence Day is a well-recognized and beloved national holiday, fewer people know about Constitution Week, an annual commemoration of the living document that upholds and protects the freedoms central to our American way of life. September 17th, 2021 marks the 234th anniversary of the adoption of the Constitution of the United States of America. It is important for all Americans to recognize this magnificent document and to reaffirm the ideals the framers of the Constitution had in 1787 by vigilantly protecting the freedoms guaranteed to us through this guardian of our liberties. We urge all citizens to study the Constitution and reflect on the privilege of being an American with all the rights and responsibilities which that privilege involves. It's also important to note that the towns of Gouverneur and Morristown in St. Lawrence County are named for Gouverneur Morris, who wrote the preamble of the Constitution. And I'm going to have Madeline read the preamble to remind us.
We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our prosperity, to ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America.
I want to thank you for taking the time tonight from your busy schedules to consider this resolution celebrating America's most important document. Thank you.
Rachel Raven?
Yes, thank you. Rachel Raven, Gouverneur. I'm here today as a representative for the child organization, Communities Helping Individuals Living in Distress. We continue to work on a collective voice to stand out and stand up for our most vulnerable population, our children that have been wronged by St. Lawrence County CPS. To date, we have 155 different families, 155 families with children that have been wrongfully done. We've only completely vetted 53 of those complaints. We're working diligently to include our legal team. But my plea to you tonight is to take us serious, to please do an investigation. I've heard through the media that some sort of an investigation is either in process or has been done. I am part of this. I have not been contacted. I spoke with my legal team an hour ago. They have not been contacted. There has been no investigation or they have not heard our concerns. I'm now 967 days without my children. And in that 967 days, thank the Lord, I've had plenty of time. Time to collect audio of caseworkers, legal documents, time to collect tons of reports from the police included. I have a box, and I just started my second box of legal proof. If anybody wants to sit down with me, I am happy to do so. Otherwise, as a board member and the medical liaison for child and supporter, we will continue to stand up and stand firm. Thank the Lord for these people tonight who are brave, who have the audacity to come, show up, and tell a little piece of their story, as heartbreaking as that is. We took in a few additional complaints this weekend, and one mother has severe PTSD, has severe social anxiety. She cannot speak, 155 families, and this is our showing for now, for today. Please, I want to read an article that, thank the Lord, Mayor of Ogdensburg, Mike Skelly, he wrote in his opinion to the North Country Now. Because this is the plea of my heart to you today. With the knowledge being brought forth to you, you either stand with us or you stand against us, or maybe you're still in question, in which case, more need for an investigation. His words, the mayor, the growing scandal involving allegations of misconduct on the part of St. Lawrence Department of Social Services and Child Protective Service employees needs to be addressed fully by the elected county officials, including the St. Lawrence County District Attorney's Office. If the allegations are true, it also means that county employees have knowingly perjured themselves and made false statements. Those are crimes. Such actions are outrageous and could be very well be responsible for innocent people going to jail. I went to jail. Families losing their children. I had that. And children themselves forever damaged because they were caught in the political crosshairs of the department's unjust actions. That's my children. St. Lawrence elected legislators have been mostly mum of these allegations, yet they are responsible for the oversight of all county departments. Where is their outrage on their behalf? As the mayor of the county's only city, the actions of the St. Lawrence County Social Services Department directly impacts my citizens. So I am outraged. I want answers. This is a top-down problem in St. Lawrence County. It's time that the county legislators and the district attorney publicly weigh in. If these allegations against DSS are true, criminal charges should be filed against all those involved. Hence, I will not stop. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak? The name is on this list. So thank you.
So I'd like to say.
Come to the podium, name and state your name, please.
My name is Tammy Bench. I want to touch a little basis on the discussion that my friend had about Lesky. Lesky, as we know, has a clear connection to Dubé. Now, I'm not sure if everybody's aware, but I have this scar on my forehead. It's a big S. And I was beat unconscious at a gas station by a man that repeatedly kicked me in the head with steel-toed shoes, boots, choking me. Two men from Lisbon, I just learned their name. Two men from Lisbon tried to stop the fight, okay, with him attacking me. And he lunged at them. He was on some kind of drugs. And he lunged at them, and they put their hands up. And when they put their hands up, he continued to beat me. I was unconscious, and I was still being choked out. To me, that's attempted murder, okay? It's well beyond an assault. But I'm gonna tell you what he was charged with. He was charged with obstruction of breathing, I believe some sort of a criminal mischief. Total, there was about 3 charges in the city of Ogdensburg. When I was beat, he took my cell phone and ran. He was hiding in a ditch. He started calling the friends, trying to convince me that he was already sorry. He went and busted out all my windows on my vehicle, ripped all the wires and everything off my motor, okay? My car was no longer movable, and I worked, and I had a child, a young child, and I had 3 busted out windows. That charge was Oswegatchie. So we got 2 courts. The man that beat me, his name was Jamin Haggart. Jamin Haggart was Nicole Duvay's lead jailhouse confession witness. I had no part of the trial. My documents had a part of the trial. My documents were a letter from him and his scheme that he was up to. My documents, Mary Skelly's documents, prove that he was in a scheme. Duvet doesn't like her. Duvet doesn't like me. Lesky doesn't like her. Lesky doesn't like me. And I'm going to tell you why Duvet doesn't like me. She was able to oversee his cases, yet he was her witness in a major murder trial, her third trial, okay? I've had some falling outs, and I had an addiction that I needed to take care of. I was helped by the federal government to get help. I used the programs, I worked it, and I've been clean for 11 years. Duvet thought I was under the carpet. Duvet thought I was under the carpet, and I was in the jail system. She allowed this man's charges to all be dismissed, minus an obstruction of breathing, okay? She lost her trial. I was in the federal system and I needed a point to be removed off my record. It was 9 years prior in Ogdensburg at DWI. Nicole DeVay told my federal attorney, Jeff Perry of Syracuse, New York, that if I did not cause her any problems in her trial, that she would consider removing my DWI point so I could have a reasonable sentence and the judge could go below mandatory, okay? Because my point system is rock bottom low. He walked. He was a 2-time felon. Had he been charged with assault properly, he'd be in prison, or I'd be fighting for him to be in prison. The fact being, what ended up happening is he got probation. I don't have my photos tonight, and I can only look at the photos and shove them back into a folder. I have a folder this thick of everything that I have, that I wrote to Duvet, to the county, to Ogdensburg City Court, to Oswegatchie Court. I begged and pleaded while I was in an institution to be heard as a victim, and I was not heard. Lesky had enough gall to publicly ask me to prove to him how they are best friends. I know they're best friends, okay? And Duvet got away with allowing her lead jailhouse witness confession man to walk. It's not over. I'll be back again because I just started speaking about this.
Is there anyone else who wants to speak? Good, thank you for showing up. Presentation of resolutions. Mr. Akers.
Mr. Chairman, I respectfully offer resolution for the dedication of a plaque on the Jones Road Bridge in the town of Hopkinton. I move this resolution.
Seconded by Mr. Smithers. Any discussion? No discussion?
Bill.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman.
What?
Tony.
What?
Tony.
Tony, go ahead. All right, Tony.
I want to begin by thanking all of my colleagues for supporting this resolution unanimously. It is extremely fitting if you knew the individual that we're talking about, Dennis Banan. I spoke to a small degree about Dennis in committee, and I'm very fortunate to have called him my friend. He died far before his time. I won't speak in depth to Dennis because we have here tonight, we have Dennis's wife, Sandra. We have his very good friend, Mike Bouchard, and we have Mark and Sean Burke here. I believe one or more will speak directly about Dennis, but I just wanted to shed a little light on an admirable friendship that, again, I'm very fortunate to be a part of. I think that all of us can reflect back into our lives early on, and we had young childhood friends. And then as time goes by, for reasons and no fault of anyone, that you move on, and maybe then you have high school friends and then college friends. And I think it's very rare that you're able to maintain friendships of through years and years as you were small children. This group of people that are here tonight, and some of the folks that were in that circle of friendship were unable to be here tonight, but they maintain this friendship to their ages of the early 50s at this point right now. When you go to functions that one will be at, all of them will be there. They're a tight-knit family. They've suffered a terrible loss in Dennis, again, far before his time. And I appreciate so much my colleagues designating the Jones Road Bridge in his honor. And I thank you, and I thank them for being here tonight. And Mr. Chairman, if I could ask you to recognize Mike Bouchard.
Mike Bouchard. Go ahead, Mike.
My name is Mike Bouchard from Messina. I'd like to take time to thank the legislators of St. Lawrence County for giving us an opportunity to honor a great man and a good friend, Dennis Banana. I had the distinct honor of calling Dennis my best friend for 47 years. I met Dennis when I was 4 years old in kindergarten. We became instant friends and remained the best of friends up until his tragic death in 2020. And he was one of the most avid outdoorsmen that I've ever met in my life. His love for the woods and hunting and fishing was second to none. We both became members of the Flower Hill Hunting Club back in 1989. A few years later there, he became the president of the club and remained the president until his death. I can't count the number of times we traveled back and forth across the Jones Road for one reason or another. Our club had land on both sides of the river. We hunted it regularly. During the winter months, we spent a great deal of time at our club snowmobiling. In the spring and summertime, we were always four-wheeling, ATVing. There was always something going on in that area, and I truly believe that he would be honored to have this bridge named in his honor. There isn't one time since Dennis has passed that I've traveled the Jones Road that I don't have a memory. Again, I'd like to thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak of a great man.
Thank you. We have one more person.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Did anybody else that came for Dennis want to say a few words? Thank you very much again for being here. And again, thank you to all my colleagues for this. Appreciate it greatly. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, now, any more discussion? All in favor of that resolution?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carried.
Thanks again. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Akers.
Chairman, I proudly offer a resolution proclaiming the week of September 17th through the 23rd, 2021 as Constitution Week. I move this resolution.
Seconded by Mr. Denisha, Mr. Lightfoot, Mr. Smithers, Mr. Reagan. And I believe that's it. Okay, any discussion? Yes, go ahead, Mr. Smithers.
I'd just like to thank the ladies for coming tonight with their presentation. It was very meaningful, at least for me.
Mr. Perkins?
I'd like to echo that, our Madeline, this is great that you do this every year. Thank you so much.
Mr. Ray?
I would like to echo those remarks and thank them for bringing this up. I think it's very important that the people of the county realize that somebody as important in our history as Governor Morris was actually a resident of St. Lawrence County during our country's early history. another one of the co-authors of the Constitution, James Monroe, also visited St. Lawrence County and came to Waddington and came to Ogdensburg and came to Morristown and came to Rossi. You know, I think too often our children growing up, when they learn about history and they learn about things like the Constitution and the early events of our nation, think they're things that happened somewhere else and that these people have no connection to the communities where they live, when actually it's far different from that. So thank you to the ladies of the DAR for making this effort to bring back this important piece of our North Country history.
Anyone else?
Kevin's
No further discussion?
Kevin.
Kevin? Go ahead, Kevin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Both these documents are wonderful documents, and they inspire people all around the world. And the Constitution to last for this length of time with minimal amounts of amendments is just really just shows that it's a great work. And men who obviously listen to their wives and put their wives' opinions into this document. One of the things that I'm sad to report, at least I've read it, I believe it's true, is that there now at the National Archives, there are warnings for people who may be triggered by the content of the Constitution and Declaration of Independence. And I hope that that warning label in our National Archives on these two documents is removed, and then we need to talk to our Congress and representatives, both on the Senate and then the House, have this warning move on these two very important documents. Thank you.
All in favor? Someone else? Okay, Ms. Haggard, go ahead. You're on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm definitely going to vote for this. I think it's a great thing. And I think, honestly, we all need to know more about what is protected by our Constitution. A lot of goings on every day that people say, well, that's my constitutional right. May come as a surprise to many that it is not. So this is just one step in the right direction to making us all, myself included, more aware of what our Constitution holds. Thank you.
We got everyone? I think so. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Mr. Lightfoot.
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution authorizing the chair to sign a subcontract with Health Research Incorporated for the New York State Public Health Corps Fellowship Program. Move for its adoption.
Seconded by Mr. Smithers. And any discussion? No discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Mr. Lightfoot.
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution authorizing the chair to sign a contract with Health Research Incorporated for the New York State Public Health Corps Fellowship Program. Move for its adoption. Is this a copy of the same one that I just read?
One's a subcontract and one's a contract or something.
No, I think it's a different one. Mr. Chairman, excuse me. In any event, I move for the adoption of this resolution.
Okay. And seconded by Mr. Reagan. Any discussion? No discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
there's background noise. I'm having a hard time hearing the meeting. I don't know where it's coming from.
Yours could be. It's from out in the hall. It's gonna close the doors.
It could be out in the hall. We're gonna close the door.
We can't close the doors, but
I
he'll
guess we can't close.
He'll tell him to maybe move along.
They are kind of noisy, give them a stick. I agree with Margaret.
How's that, better? Okay, go ahead, Mr. Lightfoot.
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution authorizing the chair to sign a contract with the New York State Department of Health for the lead poisoning prevention program grant and move for its adoption.
Second by Mr. Burke, Mr. Perkins, any discussion? No discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Mr. Lightfoot.
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution authorizing the chair to sign a contract with Twin Tier Pathology for morgue and laboratory services and move for its adoption.
Second by Mr. Smithers. Any discussion? No discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Mr. Lightfoot.
Mr. Chair, I offer a resolution authorizing the chair to sign a contract with Monroe County for morgue and laboratory services and move for its adoption.
Seconded by Mr. Perkins and Mr. Fay. Any discussion? No discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Mr. Lightfoot.
Mr. Chair, I offer a resolution authorizing the chair to sign a contract with Health Research Incorporated, the New York State Department of Health, for epidemiology and laboratory capacity, COVID-19 enhanced detection, and modifying the 2021 budget for the Public Health Department and move for its adoption.
Second by Mr. Denisha. Any discussion? No discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Burke,
Yes. Yes.
Arquette,
Yes.
Terminelli,
Yes.
Curran, Reagan,
Yes.
Forsythe,
Yes.
Lightfoot,
Yes.
Sheridan,
Yes.
Smithers,
Yes.
Denisha,
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Akers,
Yes.
Fay,
Yes.
Haggard,
yes,
Fiaco,
Yes.
14 yes, 1 absent.
Resolution carries. Mr. Lightfoot.
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution authorizing the chair to sign an agreement with Health Research Incorporated, the New York State Department of Health, for epidemiology and laboratory capacity, reopening schools funding, and modifying the 2021 budget for the Public Health Department and move for its adoption.
Second by Mr. Denisha. Any discussion? No discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Arquette, Terminelli,
Yes.
Reagan,
Yes.
Forsythe,
Yes.
Lightfoot,
Yes.
Sheridan,
Yes.
Smithers,
Yes.
Denisha,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Akers,
Yes.
Fay,
Yes.
Haggard,
yes,
Fiaco,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
14 yes, 1 absent.
Carries. Mr. Lightfoot.
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution authorizing the chair to sign contracts with contractors, subcontractors, and consultants for opioid epidemic grant funding and modifying the 2021 budget for the Public Health Department and move for its adoption.
Okay, seconded by Mr. Smithers. Any discussion? No discussion? Take a roll call vote, Kelly.
Terminelli,
Yes.
Reagan,
Yes.
Forsythe,
Yes.
Lightfoot,
Yes.
Sheridan,
Yes.
Smithers,
Yes.
Denisha,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Akers,
Yes.
Fay,
Yes.
Haggard,
Yes.
Fiaco,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
Arquette,
Yes.
14 yes, 1 absent.
Motion carries. Mr. Lightfoot.
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution modifying the 2021 budget for the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, the RAP, and the Safe Harbor Grant for the Department of Social Services, and move for its adoption.
Seconded by Mr. Perkins. Any discussion? Yes, Mr. Terminelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this may be something more for under new business, but I wanted to ask, do we know how many applications that we have right now for the Emergency Rental Assistance Program in St. Lawrence County?
I do not. Does anyone else know? You know?
Off the top of my head, but we can.
We can find that information out for you, Mr. Terminelli.
Okay, thank you. And will this, when we pass this resolution, will that expedite the time frame for people to get their reimbursement? Because I've had several phone calls about people that have applied and they haven't heard anything back and they're not getting any funding. So will this make that happen a little faster?
So we have Heather Rand on with us, who's the Director of Services for the department. I'll see if maybe she can answer the question.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you. Hi, Heather. Thank you.
Hi. So actually, what I do know is that more money has been issued through the state. What I have heard are similar concerns that you've shared, that their timeframes are not favorable. So what I can do is go back and get specific information about the numbers of people who are waiting and who have qualified. It's also my expectation that the newest round of funding from the state will encompass a larger eligibility pool and include landlords. So yeah, I can go back and get some more information.
That would be wonderful. Heather, can you also provide to us if you know the number of applicants that have been approved and the funding has actually been dispersed as well? And then maybe we need some contact information at the state level of who we need to put some pressure on.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Reagan.
Is it true that only 3 landlords have received any money from the program so far?
Heather, that question is given to you.
So I do not know that, but that is something that I can ask as well. Again, the information that I've received is that the program hasn't actually funneled the money to the landlords and to the individuals in a timely way, or that many people have not been able to actually receive funding. So we have to look into that more.
Mr. Reagan.
Is it true that the bottleneck is not your department, but is the state? And that your agency, as well as the volunteer assistance center, has been processing the applications and sending them into the state, but the state has not been dispersing the funds to the landlords?
I believe that's completely accurate, Mr. Reagan.
So Mr. Chair, if we could ask the county attorney to draft a resolution that we could bring up at our next meeting to ask the governor's office and the state social services to speed up the disbursement of this funding. I think that it's imperative in order to restore confidence in this program. It's my understanding, and I don't pretend to have know the figures exactly, but I've been told that close to 300 or 400 applications have actually already been filed, and that the Department of Social Services and the agency that we've contracted with to assist with this, has been working really hard to process these applications as quickly as possible. But the state of New York needs to move this funding out the door so that, we do not have these mass evictions that could be looming on the horizon unless something happens quickly.
I agree with you, Mr. Reagan. As a former landlord, I can appreciate what the landlords must be undertaking here with no rental coming in the last year or so.
Yeah, I mean, the some of them have gone for as long as a year and a half without receiving any rental income, and many of them are just families themselves who are now struggling and have found themselves pawns in this state action. So anything we can do to help highlight what's really going on, and that, our staff and the volunteer center are working hard to try to remedy this, and that people should have confidence to continue applying so that they too can eventually get the reimbursement they deserve. Because I think the word on the street is, don't bother, you're never gonna see your money. And we need to reverse that, and we need people to apply, and the tenants need to fill out the paperwork and cooperate with the effort as well.
I agree that a resolution ought to be forwarded from this legislative body, and I'll talk with the county attorney.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Steve?
Who's waving their hand?
No.
I think you're just saying that the county attorney is on.
Oh, go ahead, Mr. Attorney. Did you want to speak on this subject matter?
Not in great detail, just to identify that if the request is that I draft the resolution, as Mr. Reagan has indicated, I'll follow up with you, Mr. Reagan, so that I can prepare it in a manner that you are supportive of.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Butler. Okay, so any more discussion on the matter? If there's no more discussion, we'll have a roll call vote.
Reagan,
Yes.
Forsythe,
Yes.
Lightfoot,
Yes.
Sheridan,
Yes.
Smithers,
Yes.
Denisha,
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Akers,
Yes.
Fay,
Yes.
Haggard,
Yes.
Fiaco,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
Terminelli,
Yes.
13 yes, 2 absent.
Motion carries. Mr. Lightfoot.
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution authorizing the chair to sign a contract with 1011 for revenue cycle management and modify the 2021 budget for community services and move for its adoption.
Seconded by Mr. Perkins. Any discussion? No discussion? Okay, let's go on with a roll call vote, please. Kelly?
Reagan,
Yes.
Forsythe,
Yes.
Lightfoot,
Yes.
Sheridan,
Yes.
Smithers,
Yes.
Denisha,
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Akers,
Yes.
Fay,
Yes.
Haggard,
Yes.
Fiaco,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
Terminelli,
Yes.
13 yes, 2 absent.
Resolution carries. Mr. Lightfoot.
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution authorizing the chair to sign 2 contracts with New York State accepting the 2021-2022 New York State Governor's Traffic Safety Program and Child Passenger Safety Grants for Community Services and move for its adoption.
Seconded by Mr. Denisha. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Mr. Denisha, would you like to present Ms. Kern's resolution?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution authorizing the chair to sign the alternatives to incarceration service plan contract and move for its adoption.
Seconded by Mr. Perkins. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Mr. Denisha.
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution authorizing the chair to sign a facilities use permit with the State University of New York College of Technology of Canton, New York, and move for its adoption.
Seconded by Mr. Smithers. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Secretary.
I really don't know the answer to this, but on the resolution authorizing the chair to sign alternatives to incarceration, there's a county cost in there. Do we have to have a roll call on that?
Well, I don't see the word modify in there. That's usually a signal.
Okay,
So it's not modifying the budget.
okay.
So the answer is no, we don't need to. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, okay, thank you. The resolution at hand is, where are we now?
Number 16.
You're on 16, no, this one is modifying, so we're gonna need a roll call on this
And
one.
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution modifying the 2021 budget from Planning Office for Public Transit, move for its adoption.
Seconded by Mr. Perkins and Mr. Lightfoot. Any discussion? No discussion? Okay, we'll have a roll call, Kelly.
Sorry, it's not coming up, but, Forsythe,
Yes.
Lightfoot,
Yes.
Sheridan,
Yes.
Smithers,
Yes.
Denisha,
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Akers,
Yes.
Fay,
Yes.
Haggard,
Yes,
Fiaco,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
Terminelli,
Yes.
Reagan,
Yes.
13 yes, 2 absent.
Motion carries.
here.
What's that?
Rita's back.
Okay. And your vote, Rita?
Yes.
The vote is yes, Rita?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
14 yes, 1 absent.
Motion still carries. Okay, Mr. Denisha.
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution modifying the 2021 budget for the Board of Elections for the acceptance of the cybersecurity remediation grant and this adoption.
Okay, and we need a second by Mr. Perkins. Any discussion? No discussion. We'll have a roll call vote again. Kelly?
Lightfoot,
Yes.
Sheridan,
Yes.
Smithers,
Yes.
Denisha,
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Akers,
Yes.
Fay,
Yes.
Haggard,
yes,
Piaco,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
Terminelli,
Yes.
Reagan,
Yes.
Curran,
Yes.
Forsythe,
Yes.
14 yes, one absent.
Motion carries. Mr. Denisha.
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution proclaiming September 4th, 2021 as National Wildlife Day in St. Lawrence County, and move for its adoption.
Mr. Smithers seconds it. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Mr. Denisha.
Mr. Akers.
Oh, excuse me. You're right. Let's go with Mr. Akers. Mr. Akers, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution proclaiming September 12th through the 18th, 2021 as National Arts and Education Week in St. Lawrence County. I move this resolution.
Seconded by Mr. Smithers and Mr. Perkins. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, Mr. Akers.
Chairman, I offer a resolution modifying the 2021 budget for solid waste department for overtime expenses. I move this resolution.
Seconded by Mr. Burke. Any discussion? No discussion. Roll call vote, Cal?
Sheridan,
Yes.
Smithers,
Yes.
Denisha,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Akers,
Yes.
Fay,
Yes.
Haggard,
Yes.
Piacco,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
Terminelli,
Yes.
Reagan,
Yes.
Forsythe,
Yes.
Curran,
Yes.
Lightfoot,
Yes.
14 yes, one absent.
Well, resolution carries. Mr. Akers.
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution modifying the 2021 budget for the Department of Highways for overtime expenses and machinery rental. I move this resolution.
Seconded by Mr. Denisha. Any discussion? No discussion. Roll call vote, Cal?
Smithers,
Yes.
Denisha,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Akers,
Yes.
Fay,
Yes.
Haggard,
Yes.
Piacco,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
Terminelli,
Yes.
Reagan,
Yes.
Forsythe,
Yes.
Lightfoot,
Yes.
Curran,
Yes.
Sheridan,
Yes.
14 yes, one absent.
You called it?
14 yes, one absent.
Okay. Mr. Akers, motion carries. Mr. Akers.
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution approving federal aid local project supplemental agreement number 1 for right-of-way incidentals and acquisition. County Route 35, known as Slab City over Trout Brook Bridge project. Bid number 775394, bid number 3341700. I move this resolution.
Seconded by Mr. Lightfoot. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Mr. Akers.
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution authorizing a settlement agreement between Johnson & Johnson and St. Lawrence County with respect to the action relating to the opioid crisis.
And seconded by Mr. Burke. Discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Discussion?
Kevin,
Yes, go ahead.
Kevin.
What's that?
Kevin.
Go ahead, Kevin.
So I voted against this in committee, and for the reason that I stated in committee, I also stated again that this was a legal drug that was approved by the FDA after that billions of dollars or millions of dollars of research was spent on it. And that was prescribed by the medical community, doctors who had the knowledge and experience about giving these prescriptions out. And even though our local reported contradicted as to doctors not being held accountable, he did not list a St. Lawrence County doctor. We know that we've had multiple over those deaths related to opioids here in this county. And we feel that responsibility for this was actually the doctors who wrote the prescriptions. And the end result of this will be additional cost to us, consumers of prescription drugs, and actually reluctance on the part of those producers in doing the research for these pharmaceuticals that will be an inhibitor. So I will not support this. I'll be voting no.
Any other discussion? No further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No,
Opposed? How many opposed?
just one.
Okay. Motion carries. Mr. Akers.
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution adopting the legal arguments of the agreed by the state of Arizona on behalf of 25 similarly situated states in the matter of New York State Rifle and Pistol Association Incorporated, NLV versus Kevin P. Bruin in his official capacity as the superintendent of New York State Police. It's all currently pending before the United States Supreme Court. I move this resolution.
Seconded by Mr. Denisha, Mr. Perkins, Mr. Lightfoot. Any discussion? Mr. Burke.
I have a question, and maybe Steve could answer it. What is it that, what's the objective of this? Apart from protesting what the New York State Police Superintendent is charged with implementing. I guess I'm wondering, what do we hope to obtain for the residents of St. County that they don't already have? And how much time will this consume?
Mr. Burke, I'd be more than happy to answer that question. The legal challenge that's pending before the United States Supreme Court really strikes at the heart of the pistol licensing scheme that we have in New York State. In New York State, the New York State Police Commissioner in certain situations, the St. Lawrence County, not the St. Lawrence County, but the county sheriff in certain counties, and in our county, the local judge, the county court judge gets to decide restrictions that are placed on permits, gets to decide whether or not a permit is granted on the basis of Penal Law Section 400, which requires an individual to demonstrate quote unquote proper cause for the issuance of a license. These 26 states are a part of an amicus that has joined up with my surface filing, which alleges that by requiring an individual to demonstrate proper cause for why a license should be issued, then requiring the government to demonstrate proper cause why a license should not, that we have effectively limited the authority of the Second Amendment in its application in New York State and California and similarly situated states that have what is known as a may issue regime. In New York State, we have a may issue where it's totally discretionary within the government as to whether or not an individual gets to exercise that Second Amendment right. In these other 26 states, they allege that they hold what is known as a must issue, that before the state may deny an individual the opportunity to possess a firearm, that the state or the local government must demonstrate a reason why the individual should not be in possession. So this really goes to the heart of our entire licensing scheme, an issue that I know has been front and center for this board for the past at least 6 years. And really goes to a couple of things that this board has done. If you'll recall, in 2015, there was a local law that this board passed that attempted to define the term proper cause as any legitimate or legal basis. There was no true definition of proper cause. The Second Circuit Court of Appeals had even indicated that in a couple of its cases, and it asked for the New York State Legislature to try at least clarify that, because in the absence of having clarification, you wound up with a patchwork quilt of solutions associated with licensure. So to a certain extent, this is about finding uniformity. To another certain extent, it's about applying a constitutional standard that would seem to apply to the Second Amendment. So that's the first question. As to how much time I have put into this, or how much time the county has put into this, presently a significant amount less than what I had to put into with respect to NYSERPA versus New York City, the last amicus we ended up joining. That was a brief that was drafted by the state of Louisiana. In that situation, I actually had to act as the New York State of law advisor to the state of Louisiana as they were drafting their amicus. Here, we are just submitting this to the state of Arizona for inclusion, and this will conclude our activity. If I had to guess how much time I've put into this so far, maybe 4 or 5 hours, the majority of which I've done actually on weekends or at nights when I'm not actually at the county board office.
Chairman Sheridan, if you're talking, I think you're muted in the boardroom. We can't hear you.
Mr. Burke is talking.
I'll try to speak louder. If the petitioners win the lawsuit, what does that mean? Will there be no background checks? Will it be anybody who wants to carry a pistol can carry a pistol? I didn't see the remedy being sought. It's obvious that the current law needs some work, and I think, I think it needs to be fixed. I think that the right to bear arms and should be available to all people. There should be exorbitant fees for licensing. But on the other hand, it's nice to know that there is some kind of background checks that will be done to assure that people who shouldn't be carrying weapons don't carry weapons. I think there's a happy medium, and I guess my fear with this is we don't know what the end result is going to be. Did you catch the last part, Steve?
I apologize, I didn't. I think Mr. Forsyth was having difficulty with his iPad.
Story of my life, David. Story of my life.
We don't know what the end result will be. That's my concern. And I'm hesitant to side with a political entity, not knowing what it is they're really asking for and what might come down the pipe. So if I guess my initial read is not to support something that I'm wary of.
Would you like to respond, Mr. Button? Or
I'd be more than happy to respond, although I'm not sure that Mr. Burke's comment actually elicited a response. Mr. Burke, as a member of this body, has absolutely every right to vote his conscience, to vote his position. So if Mr. Burke does not feel comfortable supporting this resolution, I completely understand.
okay. Any other discussion? Mr. Lightfoot.
With your permission, maybe I can shed a little light on
Yes,
it.
go ahead.
And I've done upwards of at least 1,000 of these things, these pistol license applications. I think, based upon what I know, that the application process will still be in place, at least in New York. I don't know about other states. But during that process, it would be up to the investigator doing the investigation to determine whether or not there are any things that would prohibit the applicant from having a permit or a license to carry that weapon. At that time, that would be brought forward and it could be used by the licensing official as good cause or good reason not to issue a permit. And there are many things that can turn up in a background investigation, and that's essentially what is being done. Mental health is checked, criminal records are checked, your social acquaintances are checked, your employment is checked. So, during those checks, during those interviews, any number of things can turn up. And any of those things that turn up to be prohibitive when it comes to possessing a firearm, I'm sure that whoever the investigator is would not recommend that they be issued a permit or a license. I can't recall ever having a judge, at least when I was doing them, go against what my recommendation was, or the recommendation of whoever was doing the investigation, and make a recommendation to either approve or disapprove. I hope that helps.
Go ahead, Mr. Burke.
Thank you, Joe. It does help, but I guess I'm wondering, it sounds like they're looking to remove or to tighten the language of just cause. And in the scenario that you highlighted, Joe, there is still a detailed background check. And I'm fine with that. I guess what I'm not sure about, what's going to shake down when this gets through the courts, and what we're actually siding with. If we're siding with an entity who's basically saying the just cause gives the bureaucracy too much discretion to decide who gets it and who doesn't get it, then I'm uncomfortable with that for the same reason that Joe just highlighted. There's some people that should not have it for the safety of everybody. Do I think it's a perfect system now? Heck no. I mean, I think that there's plenty of flaws in it, and nobody should have to spend $400 to get a license that the Constitution protects. I'm going to vote no because I'm just uncomfortable not knowing what I'm siding with here.
Okay, any more discussion? Mr. Smithers?
Yeah, my understanding of this, to put it in a nutshell without getting all wrapped up in the legalness of it, is that this is a case of a right to have a pistol unless there's a reason not to have it. And if the court decides there's a reason not to have it, then certainly that's something that they will do, as Joe said. And that should be in place. I definitely agree with you. There are people that shouldn't have that. But the argument is, right now, they want to have a person show that they have a right to do that. So that's the difference. So that's at least the way that I see it, in just simple language.
Mr. Perkins, did you?
Yeah, I did. I guess what I see it as, we're trying to define proper cause. That's been a big issue. People defining proper cause in their own way, or the licensing officer. Right now, you have to prove that you have proper cause to carry a firearm. And I think that you shouldn't have to prove that you can carry a firearm, excepting for the background check. If you can pass a background check, you should be available to carry a pistol. That's my understanding of it. That's what we tried to do here in our own court system. And I think if this happens throughout the state or multiple states, we won't have that issue. If in the next term of a judge and he decides or she decides Well, I'm not gonna issue like Judge Richards did for years, caused a lot of issues. That's the way I'm seeing it.
Any more discussion? All in favor of the resolution?
Aye.
Wait, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, we got a roll call. Go ahead, Kelly.
Smithers,
Yes.
Denisha,
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Akers,
Yes.
Fay,
Yes.
Haggard,
No.
Piatko,
Yes.
Burke,
No.
Terminelli,
Yes.
Reagan,
Yes.
Forsythe,
Yes.
Lightfoot,
Yes.
Sheridan,
Yes.
Curran,
Yes.
12 yes, 2 no, 1 absent.
Motion carries. Mr. Akers. The resolution
Chairman,
carries.
I offer resolution authorizing the chair to sign a contract with Usherwood Office Technology to provide a multi-function device lease and print management program for St. Lawrence County. And move this resolution.
Seconded by Mr. Lightfoot. Any discussion? No discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Mr. Akers.
Mr. Chair, I offer a resolution setting a date for a public hearing on the proposed local law C for the year 2021 for setting the salary for the county. I move this resolution.
Seconded by Mr. Lightfoot. Any discussion? Mr. Burke?
I can't support this, because it has nothing to do with Steve's merits. And the salary is for St. Lawrence County. Nearly 1 in 5 people live in poverty in our county. The median income is 25 to 28,000. The household income is.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
All we're dealing with here tonight is not the nuts and bolts of a future resolution. This is just setting the date for the public hearing. That's the subject matter of this.
That's a good point, Mr. Lightfoot. Go ahead, Mr. Burke.
And I agree with that. The question is, setting a date is, in my mind, synonymous with approval of what we're setting the date for. And that's what I was looking to explain. I can't approve setting a date because I don't approve of the salary that's being proposed. I don't think it's affordable. And I know, Joe, that the public will weigh in on this, and that's the purpose of a public hearing. My proposal would be not to have a public hearing. That was the only reason I was bringing that up.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Carried. Mr. Akers.
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution supporting milfoil reduction efforts on Sylvia Lake, the town of Fowler, and modifying the 2021 budget for St. Louis County.
Seconded by Mr. Lightfoot. Any discussion? Mr. Burke.
I'm not opposed to funding Sylvia Lake's attack against the milfoil. But in view of the next resolution, I'm opposed to shutting out the rest of the county. The next resolution basically closes the door for any additional funding. And I'm uncomfortable saying we can fund Black Lake, we can fund Sylvia Lake, but now we're gonna shut the door and not look at anybody else's needs throughout the county without a detailed study. So not knowing how this next resolution is gonna go, I won't support this one, because I don't want the door shut.
Okay, Mr. Lightfoot?
Just to flesh out a little bit of legislative concerns that, and I won't go into any great detail here. I attended a meeting here a couple of days ago with planning and with folks from Black Lake. And during that meeting, it was decided that Black Lake, only lake, and it didn't take much of a decision process to come to the conclusion that Black Lake is not the only one that has a milfoil problem. And probably all of the lakes, and maybe some of the rivers have that same problem with Eurasian milfoil. To that end, what we are going to do is later this month, date to be determined, we will be again on Black Lake with an enlarged group of people, inclusive of the DEC, and hopefully some representation from the federal government, hopefully from the town supervisors of the towns that border Black Lake, and reaching out to the town supervisors in the townships that have lakes within their boundaries, also in St. Lawrence County. Already reached out to Clarkson University to speak with someone that's already done a study of the milfoil problem on Northern Lake. So it isn't going to stop. And I think it was a smart idea to put a moratorium on here, because we could just keep right on going to every lake in the county, when I think that this group, when it gets together, will be able to form a nucleus of an investigation to see exactly what it is, the best way to try and attack this problem, and obviously not to eradicate it, because I'm told that's not going to happen, but to control it. And if we can control it to the point where people don't have to drive through this with their boats, that kids can swim off their docks, that people can wade in the water without plant roots adhering to them, I think that makes for a good outcome, and that's what we're hoping to do, not just for Black Lake, but for every lake in this county that's got a problem. And it isn't just a county problem, it's a statewide program. It is a problem. It is also a countrywide problem. And I think with the help of planning, with the help of the EMC, with the help of interested people that have skin in the game with regard to these lakes, that we can make a big difference. Holding off, going ahead to the next resolution, holding off on funding anything else, I think is a smart thing to do. Let's see where we're going to go with it. Funding it right now in the fall is not the answer to addressing the problem anyway. So I would hope that that would help our board to make a decision.
Okay. Yes, Rick Perkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I didn't support this in committee, and I won't be supporting it again tonight. We have just under 50 bodies of water in the county. To me, it's not fair to give it to one and not the others. And some of the methods of what they do, I don't feel are worthwhile. I do feel what Sylvia Lake is doing with the actual diving and pulling of the roots, it is a good method, but it's very labor intensive. I do agree with Mr. Lightfoot where he's reached out to many entities that can help with this, and I think that's the way to go. I don't think that the county should be throwing the money at this right now. Maybe when these different entities come up with some sort of a solution, we could fund that instead to take care of all the bodies of water. So I won't be supporting this tonight.
Mr. Smithers.
I have a question. Did we get an answer to where does this money specifically go to? The Sylvia Lake Association, the secretary of
This
that?
money will be going, channeling it through the town of Fowler's town budget, and then they in turn will give it, or just divvy out the funds.
I'm not sure that's a good idea because the town of Fowler doesn't really do much with the Sylvia Lake Association. From talking with
It was the
homeowners
town
around
supervisor
Sylvia
that
Lake.
contacted me that wanted this done, first of all, along with the mayor, governor. And, but the person that is in charge of that operation up there that they've been working on for years, trying to clean it up. And they spent thousands of dollars on it. They have it's like their corporation incorporated. I don't think they're allowed to receive the funds from county government. From what I understand, so my plan is to channel it through the town. They are allowed to take it from the township, from what I understand. Bert.
Bill, I'm wondering if you'd be willing to postpone this until after Joe has this. We're not looking too far down the road, are we, Joe? For your meeting?
Yeah, this is not the time of the year that you want to be doing this, to be honest with you. It needs to be done, I think, from what I am being told, the harvest can't take place until all stuff blooms and is in there, or there's nothing to cut off and bring to the surface. The chemical application needs a plant to attach itself to kill it. So if you know, not being a botanist or having any background in biology with regard to plant mortality and how that's accomplished, I can't answer everything. But I think from what I'm told that the spring, the late spring, the early summer is the time to do this.
Their plan is to, for this particular project to start next spring. They realize it's too late for this year, but they asked for the funds this year. And it was approved through the committee, so here we are. So I would like to have a vote on it and hope that it passes. And I also will be voting for the following resolution because I do think we need to put a moratorium on it. I do agree we need to study it. And, so that's my feeling. Mr. Smith.
And the resolution for Black Lake that we passed before, who did that money go to? Was it Black Lake Homeowners Association?
It hasn't actually gone to anybody yet. The bill has either just been submitted within the last day or two, or it hasn't been submitted yet. It will go to the Black Lake, it's an association. It is not government sponsored. It will then go to the individual or the company that provided the equipment and did the work in the harvesting of Black Lake. And that's been completed now. So to the best of my knowledge, that's the way that will work.
So that doesn't really jive, I don't think, with what I heard from Mr. Sheridan there about money couldn't go to Sylvia Lake.
Well, I will tell you in all honesty, I never looked into that. And I'll accept the criticism for that if there is one.
That's just.
But no, let me finish. But that's the way that it has been set up so far to go. If there is something that we're doing that's not correct, I will see that it gets done the correct way.
Mr. Forsyth.
Go ahead, Mr. Forsyth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was against this early on. I had to bring it against the Black Lake one early on also. Not because I don't recognize there's an issue with milfoil on all these lakes. It's because I don't think this is the right process. There has to be a collaboration between all the stakeholders, the county, the state, the local jurisdiction and taxing jurisdiction. We're just throwing money out. And Mr. Lightfoot started it with Black Lake. Now we're gonna do whatever lake, Sylvan Lake or whatever. And everyone else is off. We're done. So the next resolution I'm gonna oppose too, because there's no date that we set to end it. This is just a mess, in my opinion. We talk wasting taxpayer dollars. This is wasting taxpayer dollars. We have no goal. We don't know where the money's going, and we don't know where Black Lake money's going or when it's going to be spent. So I would make a motion to table this one, and hopefully I get a second.
I'll second.
Mr. Burks made a second, motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion to table?
There's no discussion on the table.
So.
I couldn't hear what this said.
No discussion.
Okay. We ready for a vote then?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor of tabling it?
Roll call, please.
Go ahead.
Denisha,
No.
Perkins,
Yes.
Akers,
Yes.
Fay,
Yes.
Haggard,
Yes.
Fiaco,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
Terminelli,
Yes.
Curran,
Yes.
Reagan,
No.
Forsythe,
Yes.
Lightfoot,
No.
Sheridan,
No.
Smithers,
Yes.
10 yes, 4 no, 1 absent.
Motion to table carries. Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Tabled until when?
What's that?
Until when? Can't be indefinite.
Good question. Which, Mr. Perkins.
I don't know if it's my place or if it's Mr. Forsyth, since he made the motion, but I would suggest after we get some input from the planning office and after some of these meetings and we come up with some sort of resolution or problem solving.
So
That's fine by me. That's fine by me, Rick. Yeah.
So that's the win. How are we gonna describe that in the resolution? We have to have a win phrase, a date number, or when we find out?
Until the planning office comes up with a solution.
I'd have to question if the planning office is gonna come up with a solution on something like this.
Or a recommendation.
Recommendation.
How about finance in December?
One more time, Mr.
I would move to adjourn this, make an amendment to it, to adjourn this until the finance committee in December.
Okay. And seconded by Mr. Smithers. Any discussion on that? No, excuse me, no discussion. All in favor of that amendment?
Aye.
Aye.
Fine, okay. And anyone opposed? No one's opposed? Carried.
Now we've got to vote on the amended resolution, the amended,
The amended resolution is to table this until such time that the finance meeting is held in December. That's the motion. And who wants to make that motion?
I will make it.
Mr. Lightfoot, seconded by Mr. Smithers. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Mr. Rakos.
Chairman Sheridan, I offer a resolution authorizing a moratorium on funding for invasive species in St. Lawrence County until the study is completed and recommendations are received to make well-planned and informed decisions controlling invasive species in St. Lawrence County. I move this resolution.
Seconded by Mr. Burke. Any discussion? Mr. Pishon.
Chairman. This resolution came into being after discussion on the at the Finance Committee meeting, after lengthy discussion on the previous resolution to fund Sylvia Lake. You know, and we, I think to Mr. Burke's point, where does it end? Mr. Forsythe mentioned it. I don't, you know, just in my little district, a number of bodies of water. Well, it's a big district. White Pond, Trout Lake, Star Lake, Cranberry Lake, significant parts of the Oswegatchie River and Grass River, lots of ponds. And my concern was, you know, we've given Black, I believe it was $30,000, $15,000 we earmarked for Sylvia Lake. So where does it end? And you know, my contention was that we're throwing pennies at the problem. Pennies at a huge problem. And you know, with all the bodies of water, we've got well over 200 rivers, ponds, and lakes within St. Lawrence County. And so where does it end? And we could spend hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of dollars and realize absolutely nothing if we're not putting enough funding at the source of the problem. So thanks to Legislator Haggard, she felt that a moratorium on further funding was appropriate, as did I. And so that's why we have this resolution in front of us tonight. And to Mr. Forsythe's comment about there's no definitive time. Well, there's not a definitive time such as June 2022 or another date. And the actually it's the first now therefore be resolved, which is just near the bottom of the page. Board of Legislators authorizes a moratorium on authorizing funding for invasive species in St. Lawrence County until a study is completed. Recommendations are received to make well-planned and informed decisions on controlling invasive species in St. Lawrence County. I don't believe this is going to happen in 2 months. Probably not going to happen in 6 months. There are a lot of players in this. The DEC, towns and villages, sportsmen's organizations, the federal government. There's a lot of players in this, and I don't know exactly when it's going to be completed, but I am convinced that with some of the efforts that Legislator Lightfoot has taken with contacting Clarkson University, we're going to have our environmental protection folks. We've got the planning office. We get enough of the right people involved in this. We can be effective at taking care of the invasive species. But we're not going to be effective by putting $30,000 out of $15,000, $20,000. Not going to happen. It's just diluting our efforts. All I have to say.
Any more discussion? No more discussion, so, all in favor of the resolution?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Here. Mr. Lightfoot.
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution authorizing the chair to sign a lease agreement with Lot 21.
Bill,
Space for the Department of Social Services.
this is tabled. It needs to come off. This is tabled. It needs to come off the table.
Yeah, I was gonna get to that after you read it, but.
Oh, sorry.
We can do it this way. There is a note here, this resolution was tabled in June full board meeting. And so we're not gonna take any action on this one tonight,
All righty,
okay?
all righty. I have another one.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
To that.
Mr. Chairman, the next one is authorizing the chair to sign a lease agreement. And this is Mr. Akers' resolution. You choose to have him present it.
Okay, would you like to do that, Mr. Akers?
Sure. I don't recall the proper procedure. The resolution in front of us would have to be removed from the table. So the resolution that is authorizing the chair to sign a lease agreement with Lot 21 for space in City of Augsburg, New York, located at 206 Ford Street.
We need a motion to remove it from the table, is what we need right now. Mr. Denisha, you make the motion?
I will make the motion.
And a second by Mr. Reagan. Motion been made to remove it from the table. Any more discussion? No, yeah, I guess, no, we don't need the discussion on it. Okay, all in favor?
All right.
Opposed?
Opposed.
One person opposes? Carried. Then removed. Thank you. Mr. Burke.
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution authorizing the filling of vacancies and ask for its approval.
Mr. Chair?
We just removed it from the table.
Excuse me, stand corrected by Mr. Dillon. We removed it, but we voted on the amendment, but now we've got to vote on the table.
Yes.
So, sorry about that. So now we need a motion.
We gotta vote on the table or vote on the resolution?
Vote on the table.
No, we're voting on the resolution.
We just removed it from the table?
We just removed it from the table.
Right, so we would be voting on the resolution.
Don't need to.
I think Mr. Lightfoot.
Comments. Time for
Go ahead,
comments.
Mr.
Okay. Okay, so I'd like to amend this resolution in the 1, 2, 3, 4th whereas. Says the terms of the new agreement will be 5 years. I'd like to change that to 3 years. And moving right on with the continuation of that sentence and run from July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2026. I want to change and add 2024 in place of 2026. All right. And the next whereas, the rental rate per square foot will be $12 per square foot. I want to change $12 per square foot to $12.12 per square foot. And in the second line at the very end, the $500 figure would be replaced by 12 cents per square foot. Moving on with the remainder of that sentence, per annum each year for the 5-year term, I want to change the 5-year to 3 years. In the be it therefore resolved at an initial rental rate of $12, I want to change $12 to $12.12 for a term of July 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2026. I want to change 2026 to 2024. Those are my amendments.
Repeat that?
Those are my amendments.
I thought I was gonna ask you to repeat them all again.
Well, yeah.
Just kidding, Joe. Okay, so, that's in the form of a motion to make that amendment.
Yes,
Joe's
it is.
made it.
Yes.
And seconded by Mr. Denisha. All in favor of that amendment?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone
Okay.
opposed?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I ask the county administrator, what her thoughts are on this?
Yes, I don't see why not. Go ahead, ask her. Ruth, are you available?
I'm right here.
Would you like to comment on this?
Sure. Legislator Reagan, I think this is a great opportunity to continue providing the services that currently exist in Augsburg at the location where they currently reside, where those services live. They'll stay there for 3 years. I think this is workable compromise.
Thank you.
Mr. Burke?
Is the landlord in agreement with that? Do you know, Joe?
That I do not.
I wonder, Ruth, do you?
Yes.
Pardon? Okay.
Any other discussion? I'll just, go ahead.
Yes, for the county administrator, there were some issues regarding this place. Have those issues been resolved?
Chair, could I answer that?
Pardon me?
Mr. Chairman, could I answer that?
Yes, you can. Go ahead.
Legislator Perkins, the issues by majority have been worked out. There are still a few outstanding related to the exterior of the building that we continue working with them to complete.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Are we ready to vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No opposition, motion carries.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
we tabled, the first resolution on, modifying it for social services. When will that come up?
You know, Dylan,
We'd like to discuss it during executive session tonight.
Okay, thank you.
okay. Mr. Burke, authorization of filling vacancies.
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution authorizing the filling of vacancies and ask for its approval.
As a second by Mr. Perkins. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Mr. Akers?
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution authorizing the chair to convey real property known as the Gardner site located at 4241 State Highway 3 of Fine, New York to the town of Fine. I move this resolution.
Seconded by Mr. Denisha. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Mr. Denisha, you want to take this turn, or do you want to?
I can do it.
Go ahead, Mr. Denisha. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution proclaiming September as National Recovery Month in St. Lawrence County. With the 2021 theme being recovery is for everyone. Every person, every family, every community.
Seconded by Mr. Burke. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Mr. Denisha.
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution authorizing the chair to sign a contract with Vitalware LLC for web-based products, software, and tools for community services and movement adoption.
Seconded by Mr. Lightfoot. Discussion? Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And Mr. Denisha.
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution authorizing the chair to sign a contract with Epic Health Solutions LLC for review of billing practices and community services and move for its adoption.
seconded by Mr. Burke. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Mr. Lightfoot.
Mr. Chairman, I offer a resolution affirming the interim director of public health of St. Lawrence County and move for its adoption.
Seconded by Mr. Burke. About discussion, got any discussion? Mr. Forsythe? Go ahead, Mr. Forsythe.
Well, I didn't need to discuss it. I'm just happy that she's gonna take it and all good. So I was just seconding it.
You're just seconding it? Okay, thank you. Ms. Haggard, do you have something?
Yes,
Yes.
yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have the same thing that legislator Forsythe had. I was trying to second it, like, yay.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Yes, Mr.
Mr. Akers is waving his hand.
Mr. Akers?
I would just like to be added as a co-sponsor, Mr. Chairman.
Same here.
So noted. Mr. Akers is a co-sponsor. Okay, so Mr. Lightfoot.
Just a point of information, as the chairman of the Services Committee, I met with Ms. Munger last week. We had a very good conversation about public health, about her agreeing to accept an appointment as the interim director. And she's very excited to continue the work, very happy that the board has seen fit to bring this resolution forward. And she sincerely hoped that she would get the appointment and be appointed at this meeting. So I got to feel that, or I got to tell you that I feel very good about this, and that I think that here's a gal that really has her heart in the position. She is very well liked and respected, at least that's what I got from talking to some of her staff. And I think that if this passes, we can pat ourselves on the back and say we made a very good decision.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Okay, all in favor of this resolution?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Resolution carries. County Administrator's Report. Ruth, do we have anything from Syracuse, New York?
We do, just a couple of things. I'm hopeful you can hear me a little bit better, closer to the camera here. Just wanted to bring to your attention a couple of items as an update. COVID-19 cases, you heard from both Dr. Williams and from Jolene tonight about the numbers that we're seeing. Interested in bringing back to your attention the importance of mask wearing. Also looking at an option to move into a situation where we can have employees who are going into homes, employees who are delivering meals, employees who are interacting with the public, wear masks as an alternative to a full mask mandate. Wanted to bring that as an option or an alternative if there's still not a comfort level to return to full masking. I wanted to mention to you also that we have ongoing conversations with the school districts. We meet again with them on Wednesday, as Jolene identified in greater detail tonight. There is the K-12 testing mandate that she will be continuing to work on with the schools. I believe there's a very open dialogue taking place, and I believe that we should see a receipt of tests in the near future to begin that initiative and get that off the ground. Last week, we met with the SUNY Chancellor, Chair Sheridan and I. Jim Malatras visited the North Country SUNY colleges. We participated on a panel in talking about how SUNYs are redefining themselves. It was great to hear and how beneficial the relationship between the colleges, specifically SUNY Canton, has been to the COVID effort and the testing response. important conversation for the North Country for sure. Also wanted to mention to you that we have negotiations scheduled this week, toward the end of the week with the Council 82 supervisors. Wanted to give you an update that American Rescue Plan's reporting was complete in a timely manner. Also hearing quite a bit down here at NISAC about those funds. If you recall, the interim final rule comments were due in July. It's my understanding they received over 1,000 unique comments. So I believe they received a lot more than that, but as to the nature of the comments, over 1,000 to go through. And as they release the FAQs or the frequently asked questions, we'll be reading up on those. It's my understanding there is not a tentative date yet to receive a final rule, but we continue to await that and look at the plans that other counties are putting forward. Just a couple more items. Next week, we have combined operations and services. We'll have a short presentation for you on redistricting, as that will be coming forward soon. And at finance, we'll see the results of the broadband survey and recommendations provided from our partners at DANG. I did want to let you know that NISAC is working on their cybersecurity challenge that's facing all counties these days and municipalities at all levels. And I was asked to join an advisory team that will design and develop information for counties, specifically in non-technical roles, for supporting the county's cybersecurity preparedness. I believe this is an important issue that we need, as well as many other counties in the state, need to face and be prepared for. And as long as there's no objections, I would like to join their team. Wanted to give you an update on the ERAP, or the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. There's been another $250 million appropriated for this effort. They have also included an expansion to include landlords so that they can now apply to receive funds associated with the arrears since the moratorium was put into place. And just an update for you on those totals I've been providing. For the rental arrears, there's 450 applications complete in St. Lawrence County. For the prospective rental, there are 364 applications complete. And for the utility arrears, there are 103 applications complete. So I'll continue to send out the zip code data as it's provided. And then lastly, unless there's any questions for me, I wanted to, especially being here at NISAC, we have been yet again awarded the big check for the highest earner awards. I hope you can see that. Oh, hold on. There we go. The highest earner award for our procurement card. And no one has earned a greater rebate than St. Lawrence County since they started this initiative. Madison County is hot on our heels, but we yet again win $111,000 in rebates, over $300,000 over the last 3 years. And this is great thanks to Stephanie Kerr in our purchasing office, and certainly the departments who put these through and work very hard to make sure it happens, as well as our treasurer staff who processes all of these transactions. So hugely proud. Sorry it was upside down, but we're very happy to be recognized at NISAC. I was also able to present a service award to one of my colleagues from Greene County, Sean Groden, tonight. And I'll just close by mentioning that Renee Cole, our county treasurer, as well as I, graduated from our County Government Institute tonight. And that's in collaboration with Cornell University. So it's been a nice evening, and that was my absence from the board meeting, was to do all of that. So unless there's questions, that's all I have, Mr. Chair. I think you're muted if you're talking.
That's one more time.
And now you're not muted.
Nicole, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Ruth, I just wanted to ask about the masks. Is the hesitation to put the masks back into effect, how does the union and the staff feel about it? Is this something they would like administration to support, or is this something that the union and the staff are against? Because I would like to know how they weigh in on the mask idea.
All of the contacts that I've received have been in favor of returning to full masking. I haven't taken a formal survey, so I can't speak for all county employees or all unions. I'm happy to gather that information, but the ones I have heard from would like to see us return to masking.
I would appreciate if you could get the pulse of the rest of the staff and the unions, just because I would hate to be the administrators that are standing in the way of the staff feeling that they're protected at work, especially seeing it doesn't really have impact or effect on the 15 of us as much as it does the 800 plus of them. So that would be fantastic. Thanks.
I'll bring that to you next week.
Thank you.
Richard has a question
Is that a question?
Kevin.
or comment.
Mr. Chairman, may I?
Yes, go ahead.
So am I right, County Administrator Doyle, that there's no restriction from an employee wearing a mask individually right now themselves, correct?
There's no restriction. Correct.
So there's no restriction if somebody wants to wear a mask. Here at this conference, and when you go out into public, shopping centers or whatever, people are making their own decisions. You looked at the data tonight, it's on the Pfizer, 95, somewhere between 92 and 95% effective. And so I think at this particular time, if you really look at the research on masking, which is controversial, there are no definitive studies that show that masks, particularly the masks that are homemade, that show any difference whatsoever. And so my feeling is that you have people that are actually going to get vaccinated now. I got a construction crew at my place, and 3 out of the 4 were not vaccinated. And when I left to come down here, one of them was deciding to go to Walmart again. So they're seeing the news. If you look at the data, if you follow the science, you will let the employees make the decision for themselves. You will discourage people from getting vaccinated, not only in our employees, but the public in itself. You return to mandatory masking. Mandatory masking means to the others that the vaccine doesn't work, so why should I bother to take any risk whatsoever with the vaccine if I'm still going to have to mask? Thank you.
Go ahead, Nicole.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll ask if I could direct my comment towards Mr. Akers. My question was for Ms. Doyle, but if I could redirect towards Mr. Akers that answered my question that was not towards him. If I could, and I understand, Mr. Akers, what you're saying, but I have the luxury, we as legislators have the luxury of being able to attend our meetings now virtually. I have been very hesitant to have been at the meetings and surrounded by people that are not masked, because in my full-time job, we are required to be masked all day long. So now I'm afforded the luxury to be able to attend work for the county virtually, but our employees are not afforded that luxury. So I think that it would show a great support to them. It's not against vaccination or anything else. It's just to show support for our workers and what they want, not what you want or I want. And that's all I was commenting about.
So my return comment is, what you have heard is that employees that have actually been in contact with our county administrator, that have all 800 responded?
I wasn't speaking to anybody that's been in contact with her. I was asking a question that I believe she said she'd get an answer for. So thank you.
Forsythe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ruth, I think I asked it a while ago, and I don't recall seeing the information. What percentage of our employees are vaccinated? We heard about SUNY Canton, St. Lawrence, the health systems. I haven't heard about St. Lawrence County.
We do not have a vaccine mandate, and I think the colleges you referred to do. We have not collected that information except anecdotally at the completion of our daily assessments. And at that time, out of the employees who answered, there were approximately 300 that were answering in the affirmative. We also gave the option not to share. So we weren't requiring employees to prove to us they were vaccinated or that that they had to give an answer. So out of those who were answering, that's why I mentioned to Nicole that we can certainly get more information together if that's the pleasure of the board.
Well, okay. Well, that raises an interesting question to me. How do they get the information? How do these other entities get the information if we don't require our employees to let us know?
How does who get the information?
St. Lawrence, they said St. Lawrence University was 90-some percent.
Mandated vaccines.
What was that? I'm sorry?
They've mandated vaccines.
I can't hear.
They mandated the vaccine.
They mandated the vaccine.
So they have to bring them a card in order to go to school.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Ms. Hager?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I probably should direct this to our county attorney, but I believe we're an employer of over 100 individuals. And there's been a recent decision by the federal government to mandate either vaccines or testing for any employers with more than 100 people. Do we fall into that group? I mean, I don't know why we wouldn't. We employ 800 people.
I'd be more than happy to answer that question if you'd like me to.
Go ahead, Mr. Butler.
Thank you. What you're referring to is President Biden's recent direction to OSHA, which is the occupational safety entity that the federal government has that employs strategies and techniques to keep workplaces safe for the employees. He's directed OSHA to mandate or come up with regulations that would dictate that private employers with more than 100 employees be required to mandate vaccination status. We are not classified as a private employer, but separately, there is a provision in his directive that has been provided to OSHA that we may fall under. There is a separate provision that indicated that all federal agencies, as all federal contractors, would be required to have a vaccinated population within their employee base. We haven't seen the language from OSHA yet. I don't know if that will specifically exclude contractors that are in fact political subdivisions of a separate political entity or separate municipalities, but it's entirely possible that we could fall under the second portion of President Biden's directive.
Thank you very much for that answer.
Any other discussion? Yes, Mr. Dickinson.
Chairman, in regards to the mask policy, I know we're all over the board on this. You know, we've got some people that support it, some people don't support it, some people support a hybrid. You know, and we first started, we did a poll, informal, Ruth took an informal poll electronically. Who's in favor of it, who's not in favor of it? As I said, there's a number of people. And as with anything, you can cite, you know, if you believe something you have belief, you can find information that will support your belief. If I believe contrary to you, I can find information that will support my belief. Somewhere in the middle is the truth. And I think we've got 800 employees, neighborhood of 800 employees that deal with the public. Many of them deal with the public day in and day out. I believe we have an obligation to our employees and to the public that we serve and to our employees' families to come up with some recommendation. You know, it's I think Ruth's idea, it's a bit of a hybrid, but I think that at least it gets us somewhere. Right now, we're just floundering, and you know, we're here because we are the decision-making body, and I don't think that we're fulfilling our obligation.
Mr. Perkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe in personal choice. I believe it is each individual's personal choice to decide whether they want to have a vaccine or wear a mask. I don't begrudge anybody either way. I feel it is their choice. And until we close the southern border and stop all the people coming in and moving them through our country without vaccinating them, I can't support any of this until the federal government actually shows us they're doing something besides throwing mandates at us. That's all I'm gonna say.
Any more discussion? Go ahead.
One more bite at the apple, as Mr. Lightfoot would say. We just passed a resolution appointing a interim director of public health. If you look at the, I'm sure everyone does, you look at the public reports that the public health office puts out every day. Right at the very top, it says they recommend, public health recommends wearing a mask. So, you know, if we're getting that kind of recommendation, I guess I'm kind of baffled how we could elect someone that would give us that kind of bad information for interim director of public health.
Well, Larry, earlier you said that you thought we should be making recommendations, and in a way we are. We have our public health director saying we should be wearing masks. They're recommending it, but they're not mandating it. And I'm not prepared, like Mr. Perkins and along with a lot of the rest of us, I'm not prepared to put out mandates like a lot of the politicians that I'm seeing in the state level and the national level, and against people's own liberties. So that's why I will be against any mandate on forcing people to wear a mask in this building. Go ahead, Mr. Perkins.
If I could direct this to the county administrator, we get these updates on COVID and all the numbers and statistics. What is the chance of getting numbers in St. Lawrence County for 2020 and 2021 currently of the people that have died for whatever reason, heart attack, stroke, COVID, cancer? I'd like to see suicide, drownings, overdose. I'd like to see those numbers so we could see them as a comparison, if that's possible. And I know there must be hospitalization rates that go right along with it because they're always full. It'd be nice to see that so we have some sort of a valid comparison. I mean, we just seem to be all jumping on a bandwagon, and I believe there is COVID. I have no doubt about it, but I think we need to address all the issues.
Any more discussion, Nicole? Nicole, go ahead, Nicole.
I guess I'm just confused at what that comparison would give. We've got a communicable disease versus other health things that you don't catch from people. So I guess I'm not really sure if that's like an apples to oranges type of a thing. I just really would just like Ruth, I brought this up not to start a grand discussion about what people's opinions are. I just really wanted to see what the staff wanted because it pertains to the staff. So that's all I was asking. I didn't mean to open a can of worms about what everybody thinks that we should make our employees do or not do. I just really wanted to know if we could get the beat of the staff.
And I'm happy to.
Any more discussion?
Kevin Akers has a discussion point.
Go ahead, Mr. Akers.
So what you see at the many of the signs of the businesses, restaurants, or stores that you see now is we strongly recommend masks if you are unvaccinated. And that can be left up to your individual choice. So you've got a certain sector of the population that believes that masks are 100% effective. So therefore, if they're vaccinated and they want to wear a mask, then they are protecting themselves. They're also protecting, they should believe that they're protecting those who aren't unvaccinated by wearing the mask. So I think that if we communicate the same type of message, that we recommend masks, particularly if you're up, please wear them if you're unvaccinated, and just leave it up to the employee's choice. Is that can of worms, Nicole? Really?
I'm sorry, what was that? Was that directed towards me?
The can of worms, the can of worms. We're back to fishing. Never mind.
Okay.
We're having difficulty hearing you, Kevin. You're not coming in very clear. Would you repeat that?
Louder. I think that we should leave it up to the individual choice. Certainly people, 300 or so that have suggested wearing the mask, those 300 people can wear masks. Let them wear masks. If they feel that masks are effective in defeating COVID, which there are plenty of studies that show that they make marginal difference, that's fine. Let them do that. Let employees make the decision for themselves.
Okay. Are we finished with the county administrator's report?
We are.
We're going to move on to old and new business. Does anyone have any old business? Mr. Barkley?
New business.
New business? Go ahead.
Yes. First off, I want to thank all the people in the EMS departments throughout the whole county. And what I have to say, it has nothing to retract from anything you do. Respect everything that you do and appreciate it. There's an issue in Parrishville with some of the residents. The EMS is running all over the county, the Parrishville EMS. They're going, from August 11th to September 11th, they did 70 calls. They're running to Potsdam, Messina, Waddington, Madrid. They're doing all kinds of calls because the other agencies aren't getting to them. They're being toned out numerous times, so Parrishville ends up going. And sometimes a lot of them are for sicknesses or abdominal pains, things that you could probably go to the hospital yourself for if needed. But the issue really is they have been out on some of these calls when there's calls in Parrishville with the residents of Parrishville, and they can't get to them for hours and hours because they're out on calls. So the citizens there's been a couple real close incidences where things could have turned out a lot worse than they did. The residents would like to see Parrishville be able to take care of the people in Parrishville. Not that they don't want them going all over the place, but their taxes are paying for them. They'd like them to be there when they are needed. I don't know what we can do. I don't know why other townships aren't sending their people out, why they're not going. I don't know, but I think it's something that we have to address before somebody loses a life. I did talk to Matt Denner, he's looking into it, and hopefully we can come up with some sort of solution. Maybe some towns can look into it. I know there's some paid agencies out there. I'm not sure why they're not getting there, but I hope people can pick up the slack. I know they're volunteers. They work very hard. They have jobs, they have families, but so do the ones in Parrishville. And I'd hate to see somebody lose a life.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. I can shed a little light on it. And this is something that we've talked about at the Fire Advisory Board and the EMS. Another EMS unit that's facing the same thing, Rick, is Governor. Governor, Edwards used to have a rescue split. They don't any longer. Russell had one. They don't any longer. Herman has one, but most of the folks that are qualified work during the daytime. So what's happening, Governor, they're responding to an inordinate number of calls. You know, they are. Star Lake, you know, it's in, and yes, Parrishville and some of the outlying areas are more susceptible to this than Canton, Owensburg, Potsdam. It's a problem all over the county. And one of the biggest problems is having people, because the training qualification, the training requirements are so strict. The other thing is the funding. The funding that EMS units receive. Some of the Medicaid funding hasn't changed. It's the same as it was in 2013. And costs keep going up. They go up and they go up and they go up. So, yeah, I know it's being discussed. It's a real issue.
Yeah, it is. And yeah, another one is they're putting all these miles on their vehicles. They're gonna need a new vehicle here before long. And the taxpayers are gonna say, why are we gonna pay for this if we're not getting the benefits of it? And I understand, you know, and these EMS, they feel it's their duty or their calling to go wherever it is they need to go. And I commend them for that. But somehow there needs to be a balance throughout the county. Whether maybe the county should somehow take over some things, or the state, I don't know how it would work, but I think it needs to be looked at so that everybody gets proper care. But I just wanted to bring it to everybody's attention.
When did you bring it to Matt Gunner's attention?
Today.
Just today?
Yes.
So he probably will get back to us with some kind of idea.
Yeah, we'll be talking again.
Yeah.
Can I say something?
Was that Rita?
Yes.
Go ahead, Rita.
So for some time, Matt Denner and I have been talking about the fact that little by little,
Also, just got that today.
we don't have great responses for rescue squads. And the rescue squad sizes are sort of dwindling. Now there seems to be quite a bit of fatigue in the community from doing this at all. And like Messina, that used to have a very robust rescue squad, has lost like 30% of its members in the last 6 to 8 months. So it's something we've been talking about at the EMS meetings, because people are retiring or just stopping doing it, and new people just aren't signing up in the way that they used to. That's all.
Ms. Haggard?
Are we moving along with new business still?
Yes.
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Myself, along with 14 other people in this chamber, were elected. And when you're elected, you expect to have pot shots taken. You expect to hear things about yourself that you didn't even know. And it's entertaining and it's interesting and it's always something new. But the way we are conducting public comment concerns me. I understand everyone has a right to come before this board and voice their concerns. And I would be the last person in the world to try to make that not happen. Everybody has a First Amendment right. They can say whatever they want. We went into territory about private citizens, some of them my former colleagues, people running for office that were there to either defend themselves or people to give an alternate view. I don't know how we can address this. I imagine it would have to come from you, Mr. Chairman, as we digress. As I said, this isn't about things that might be accusing me or somebody else. That's our problem. But when we allow people to come into this public forum and make statements that we don't know the veracity and have the potential to affect people's income, that's the real kicker. And not just candidates, but a lot of names were mentioned, most of whom I know. And they're not here to defend themselves, and they're not here to even know who their accusers are. Now, people have a right to say what they want, but I think it's imperative upon us to be fair. We're all very thick-skinned, even with a year of this work under my belt. My skin's getting thicker by the day. It's pretty difficult to take everything very seriously when you're being accused of things you don't know what's going on. But for the other people that aren't here and people that really, we don't have any power over affecting what's going on at a school district or who did this to that person. It's an inappropriate forum for us to listen to this stuff. I'd have to defer once again to our county attorney about how we address this, but I'd like to see us visit some sort of a system for putting parameters around this kind of thing. It's inappropriate, and it really, to me, is disgusting, some of the comments that were made about other individuals. We've asked for this brief, okay? We're all sitting here, we asked for it. That's fine, I don't care. But other people don't ask for it.
Other people, are you naming private citizens that are not involved with politics that you're concerned about that were mentioned?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, mainly. And also, I mean, we are not a place where people come to campaign either, I wouldn't think. But primarily the inappropriateness of the campaign speeches, and also private citizens who I mean, it's cringeworthy to listen to the accusations that these people have no idea. I mean, it's wrong. And I think we as a body need to take some responsibility in saying that's not on topic for the Board of Legislators to do anything about.
Well, I appreciate your opinion. There are those who would argue that they have First Amendment rights to say what they want to say, especially about public officials. As far as
Mr. Chairman said that. I said that. Please don't misquote me. I said they do have a First Amendment right. And public officials, like I said, we asked for it. We're sitting here, whether it's true or not, we listen to it and we wonder exactly how it got that convoluted, okay? I'm not talking about taking away anybody's First Amendment right. I am, for a million times over, I like the public comment. I think it's interesting. I think that we just need to have it be appropriate. And when it gets inappropriate, I put it on you, Mr. Chairman, and this body to come up with a way of making that not happen. It's wrong. Private citizens don't deserve it. We do. We're making decisions. Listen, I've made a lot of decisions or said a lot of things that a lot of people don't like, and I'm still sitting here. I'm upright, you know, it's no problem. But people who aren't here defending themselves or aren't here, it's an inappropriate forum to accuse people of crimes.
Okay.
Mr.
Any
Chair,
others? Mr. Yes. Rita, go ahead.
can we get Mr. Button's opinion on that? Like, what can we do? What can we do?
Mr. Button, would you like to weigh in on that one?
Well, how long do you have? I can give you an abridged version, but I think Ms. Haggard hit on the high notes essentially of the New York Times versus Sullivan decision from 1964, where the United States Supreme Court identified that there's a dichotomy between public and private figures. And those who have intentionally thrust themselves into the public spotlight naturally do not enjoy the protections of those individuals who retain their private intimacy. Those individuals who are private, though, do enjoy a greater amount of protection. They have not intentionally put themselves into the public spotlight, and they should not naturally be the subject of attack in a public forum. I will say that the United States Supreme Court, as well as the federal government, have crafted a series of decisions over the course of the history of the United States that have identified that while governmental entities are not allowed to craft laws that bridge the rights of an individual's ability to express themselves freely in a public forum, they have identified that a governmental entity may craft rules or regulations that establish the time, the place, and the manner in which those opinions may be expressed. So there is an appropriate way with which to craft parameters that allow people an opportunity to express themselves without engaging in hostilities that would naturally mean another. I mean, I think everyone is familiar with the fact that you cannot walk into a theater and yell fire. Or more importantly these days, and I think more apropos, you can't walk onto a plane and scream bomb. So there are certain things in certain areas that are just off limits now in terms of speech. But I do think that there's a way, looking at the rules of this board, that we could craft parameters that would naturally permit them to express themselves freely without allowing a sort of a drift into a lesser and more base response and opinion about private individuals.
Thank you, Mr. Button.
Moving right along.
Okay, let's move on to any other old business or new business. Mr. Smithers.
At the town of Governor meeting that I went to, they expressed a concern that I said that I would mention. In the community center, they have expanded quite a lot in distributing the Meals on Wheels, and they said they're running short of funds because of this. And so I just asked if we could review the budget for the senior citizens and Meals on Wheels and make sure that they're getting enough funding to support this program that they're doing. They've got a lot more meals that they're delivering, a lot further. And so they want me to just mention that they're not meeting their expenses in the community center because of that.
Yeah. Larry, you've been involved with the Meals on Wheels to a big degree, I guess.
Yeah.
Have you heard of any of the same?
Actually, the Meals, Meals on Wheels, that's an entirely different organization. This, the home delivered meals for the Office for the Aging, those meals are the delivery, with the exception of maybe a few folks from Office for the Aging, those are home delivered meals are delivered by volunteers. So, yeah, I don't.
Well, it's something,
Because, I mean, I can tell you that, today we did have our Office for the Aging Advisory Council meeting, and the number of routes has gone up drastically since COVID started. don't quote me, but I think it was 15 before the COVID started, and we're up to 26 now. So the demand for meals continues to grow. But unless there's something I'm not aware of, most of the routes are either office for the aging personnel or volunteers.
Go ahead, Mr. Reagan.
Mr. Chair, can we ask the county administrator to look into this, because it may be that what is being called Meals on Wheels may actually be the program that legislator Denise is talking about. But, I think that they can talk to the folks in Governor and get a determination of just what is being talked about.
Ruth,
We sure can.
thank you very much. It's something we'll talk with Office of Aging and the people in Governor and find out precisely what their issue is. Mr. Burke.
This would probably be old business, the opioid treatment program. I know on different occasions, Kevin has asked for an update. And I was wondering if maybe Steve could comment on the contract that we have with St. Lawrence Health System. Are they in breach of contract, Steve?
Jay and I have actually talked about it, and I think we have an obligation under the contract to communicate clearly to our subcontractors what our expectation is, identify that they may have in fact violated a term, and provide them an opportunity to cure any breach that may exist. Do I believe they're in breach at this point? I don't believe that we established internal timelines that would have mandated that they perform at this point. Obviously, there is a term established for the contract. That term is a broader timeline. But I do believe that there was a clear expectation as to moving forward. And at this point, I think there is a concern that they could even meet the timeline that was established in the original terms. So we are interested in having more conversations about it. I know Ruth has been included in those conversations. So I think we're going to continue to discuss that with Jay and discuss what our options are so that he can come back and advise the board so that you may take action if needed.
It's been about 9 months now since they've been awarded the contract, or thereabouts. And I can't help but wonder how many people who could have benefited from the opioid treatment, the methadone treatment, that didn't get it. I mean, I don't know whether lives have been lost, but certainly opportunities have been lost because there is no follow through. The last information that I believe we had was that they were looking at the clinic, the VA clinic that is being vacated, and that doesn't happen until November. And then there would have to be construction. I'll tell you, my feeling is we should ask the county to do the program and have them do it within a 6-month period of time, if at all possible. Our citizens are being deprived of a critical substance abuse treatment. And there's been more than enough opportunity for St. Lawrence Health System to respond to this. And to the best of my knowledge, no action, there's no definite plan. And I believe we should part ways and we should develop our own methadone clinic, our own mobile unit, and service the entire county. And I would also mention that if you saw the news recently where Jefferson County Jail had an individual on methadone, they were obligated to provide that treatment. That same would hold true for us I believe. So I would encourage the board, this isn't an attempt to point the finger or point the blame at anybody. We gave them more than enough opportunity to respond to this. They haven't done it. And my feeling is that another lip service is not sufficient. We've got people who need the services. And I would ask my fellow legislators to consider having the county perform that critical function, and it would be up and running probably within a 6-month period of time. That was before it was awarded to St. Lawrence Health System. That was the projection that was given way back when. And again, my intent isn't to point the finger at anybody, but a failed implementation is a failed implementation. It hasn't happened. Terrible site. It's not a good site. I mean, I don't know whether anybody is driven by the mall as of late, but when the VA plant closed, it's JCPenney's. I believe that's left. So we need a place that can serve the entire county. And I would ask the board to consider that. And it doesn't have to be done today, but perhaps at services, we could have a longer discussion about it if people are in agreement.
Have we had an official response back from St. Lawrence Health as to why it's been taking so long? Has anyone seen a Ruth? Have you seen anything like that come in?
Mr. Chair, I was scheduled to meet with them. That meeting had to be postponed, unfortunately. So I am scheduled to meet with them. I'll have to check that when I return, but I can find out that information for you.
Thank you. Will that take care of part of your problem, Mr. Burke, with your concern over that, which is legitimate, I say?
Well, I guess what I would say, Mr. Chairman, is that if we could discuss it before we ask Ruth to meet with them. Because asking Ruth to meet with them, the implication is that we're still on board with what they've done, and they've done nothing. And my concern is that if Ruth meets with them and they craft a plan saying that by next April, May, or whatever, they'll be up and running. As far as I'm concerned, they have breached our trust. And that is, and again, this isn't about trying to foster our own organization. This is about trying to meet a critical need in the community. Drug abuse, overdoses are still a real problem in this county. And maybe we could ask Jay and Ruth to weigh in on that, but I would suggest that Ruth doesn't meet with them until we have a chance to discuss it. It's just next week.
Well, I would think Ruth would want to hear the reasons why there are so many roadblocks possibly St. Lawrence agency is facing before we jump to the conclusion of dumping that. That's my own personal opinion. But I'd rather have Ruth meet with them and see what's going on. She's already talked about arranging the meeting. I would like to have that happen. So, any other discussion on it? Anyone else feel the same way, or what?
I think, okay, I was just gonna say, I think Ms. Curran is trying to get our attention.
Go ahead, Rita.
So, if I could have Jay weigh in, we had a meeting at the beginning with some people from St. Lawrence Health. Oh, sorry. There was a meeting at the VA with some people from St. Lawrence Health probably 3 weeks ago. Jay was there. We did a walkthrough with them. And they basically at that time thought that if they got the lease to the building on November 1st, it would be like 30 days before they could have the OTP up in the one section. So I know there's more to it than just what they would need for, construction, but I would be interested to hear from Jay as to whether he thinks they can actually pull this together. Where are they in their paperwork? Because I know those are answers to questions that he probably knows and I don't know. I was just listening to them talk about the construction part. I see Jay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything hinges on, one thing or the other. I mean, they have to get their application approved in order to, from leases, in order to feel comfortable signing the lease. So, there is that conduit that they have to abide by. So I don't know what else you want me to reference, Rita.
I guess, what did you think of their plan of putting the OTP up quickly and then doing their mental health piece later?
Well, I mean, I'm hoping that is the direction that they're wanting to go, because they don't have a timeline with the Article 28 mental health clinic, but they do with the OTP. So I have not had a definitive answer as to whether that is the priority for them.
Go ahead, Ms. Nicole Terminelli, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Who holds the funding right this moment? Is it reimbursement funding? Do we hold it, or have they been fronted the money? How does that work?
The county holds the money until it's appropriated to whatever invoices and receipts that they can show for remittance.
Well, the question remains here is, do we want to have Ruth meet with them before we take action? And I think that would be the proper thing to do, considering we've got to find out what the other side of the coin is on this. Yes, go ahead, Liz.
Seems to, was my understanding that we were going to ask St. Lawrence Health to come before the board and make a presentation. I don't know that, obviously that hasn't either been done or they didn't accept. But I think that this would be the place to see St. Lawrence Health respond to some questions from this board as to what they're doing or what they're not doing.
That sounds like a good idea too. But in other words, do that rather than have Ruth with the planned meetings.
Well, it's my understanding that Ruth was going to reach out to them. And I'm hoping my memory is correct here. And to get a date where they would be in here and doing that very thing.
Is that what's going on, Ruth? That you were going to reach out to them, or that you have?
My understanding was they came in, if you recall, a few months ago and provided you with some information that I think the board was looking for a little bit greater detail. So we were going to meet separately from the committee and board setting to have a discussion. But I'm happy. I have some commitments in the morning, but I can talk with Jay about this tomorrow and determine the best course of action. We can get some more information for you and the board can take up the issue. I don't think one, necessarily needs to be predicated on the other, but we can certainly get some information together. I think there's been some other conversations going on and we can send that out to you to take a look at. How would that be?
I would be agreeing with that, because we'll get the information and then we'll go from there. And I think Mr. Burke brought up a good subject and we're moving on it, but it depends on how we want to go about it. Sounds like you got a good plan, Ruth, right there. I would go with that. Is anyone against Ruth's idea on what she just said? All in favor of that suggestion that's Ruth will take? All in favor, say yes.
Sure.
Anyone opposed to that way? Okay, we're going with that, then we'll do it, take it together, and Okay, thank you. Okay, any other old and new business? Good. Committee reports. We got any? Anybody want to report on a committee? No? Go ahead, Henry. Or Harry.
Governor Fair reported quite a successful year.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, they said things went well.
Yeah.
Good attendance.
Very nice. Glad to hear that. Good report. It's funny how they did well, but the New York Fair didn't do so well. Ruth, is there a need to go into executive session?
There is for litigation, negotiations, personnel related to the medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person or corporation, or matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation. And we have one appointment to consider.
Very good. Motion to go into executive session by Mr. Perkins, second by Mr. Smithers. Mr. Denisha, all in favor, going into executive session? Aye. Opposed? Carried. We're going into executive session.
$1.15 down to 35 Smoky Ridge Road, Blatchford, New York. I would move for her appointment.
Seconded by Mr. Lightfoot. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Chair's appointments. Or do we want to do, we've got to come up with that one resolution that Ruth just talked to. Who wants to put that in words? You, Harry? Go ahead.
I propose a resolution to authorize, accept remote work for those employees that have been quarantined at home, subject to review in 30 days.
And how many days?
30
days. Is there a second on that? Mr. Reagan seconds, Mr. Burke seconds. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Chair's appointments. We have search committee for Commissioner of Social Services. That will be Legislator Lightfoot, Denisha, Burke, Terminelli, and I will be the ex officio. The districting committee, Rick Perkins, Dan Fay, Kevin Akers, Joe Lightfoot. I'll be the ex officio. And that's it. Want to make a motion to get the heck out of here? Okay, go ahead. Mr. Burke, may makes a motion. Seconded by who?
Yeah.
Mr. Smithers, and we've voted to get out of session tonight. All in favor?